Meeting of Everett Public Schools Board of Directors. I appreciate your patience as we gather a quorum here today. It's highly unusual that we don't have a quorum, but tonight work and other activities have taken us away. So we will go ahead and get started. Unfortunately, tonight, have to mention our nation has been rocked yet again by another school shooting. As we begin tonight's meeting, the board would like to take a moment to remember those who lost loved ones or were injured at the Santa Fe High School shooting last week in Santa Fe, Texas. This senseless act of violence has devastated students, educators, parents, families, not only in their close-knit community, but across the country. Please take a moment to think about them, the students and the school staff who cared for them, and those who continue to help them heal and cope with the aftermath. We stand in solidarity with the Santa Fe community. I ask you that we take a moment in silence and honor those injured and lives taken way too soon. Thank you. And with that, we will begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
President Mason.
Present.
Vice President Andrews. Director Lassane.
Present.
Director Mitchell.
Present.
Director Wenta. Student Representative Parikh.
Present.
Student Representative Pollock.
Thank you. Our first item of business this evening is the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Cohn, may you please introduce tonight's agenda?
Yes, consistent with the plans established at your 2017 Summer Planning Workshop, tonight's agenda contains several elements related to both the district's strategic plan and the board's annual goals. There is this evening a segment for routine business, a segment for board comments, a segment for the superintendent's report, a segment for strategic progress reporting, a segment for information items, a segment for new business, and a segment for upcoming agenda items. Though there have been no changes to the agenda since it was published, please note that we will update item 8.1, the superintendent's report, during the meeting as is customary for regular meetings. Although we do not have a recognition item planned on the agenda tonight, we are going to recognize one of our student representatives to the school board who received some really wonderful news this past week. And we may, as a result of your discussion in executive session with counsel on pending litigation, need to take action following the executive session, which would mean we would add an item to the agenda which requires a majority vote once the agenda is approved. The board may elect to change the order of business by a majority vote of the members. That's at this point in the meeting. Please note this is not the point in your agenda to request items be removed from the consent agenda. In all respects, other than those I've just mentioned will or may happen, the agenda is as it was originally published to you, and we ask your approval thereof.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Director Lassane and seconded by Director Mitchell. Is there any discussion regarding tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we will move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No. The motion carries. That brings us to section 5.0 recognition. As Dr. Cohn mentioned, there is no formal recognition this evening, which will move us to section 6.0 public comment. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of involving members of the community in its meetings. Dr. Cohn, are there any requests for comments?
Yes, there are.
Okay. I believe you were versed before the meeting on how this section of the meeting goes, but let me just reiterate. First of all, I'd like to welcome you to our meeting this evening. School board meetings are designed to conduct district business in public. We welcome ideas and opinions presented in that same spirit. I would like to share with you how this portion of the meeting works. First, the superintendent will call you to the podium, and I believe you have an order that has been...
We call people in the order they signed up.
Okay. Each speaker has 3 minutes. All comments are recorded, which will be made available to the public and to the board for future viewing. And public comment section is for the board to listen to what you have to say. It is not a time for debate or discussion. As board president, I have the responsibility to ensure the meetings and all conversation are orderly, respectful, and productive, and I appreciate your help with this responsibility. Dr. Cohn, may you please introduce our first speaker this evening?
Yes, I'd be happy to. The first speaker this evening is Michael Brenner, and he is a parent of a student enrolled at Jackson High School. The green light on the lectern will signify the start of your 3 minutes, the yellow, a 30-second warning, and the red, the expiration of the 3 minutes.
All right. Like was said, I'm Michael Brannon, and I'm the geographer from North Point who has found that the current boundaries as drawn is impacting the Mill Creek minority-dense communities more than it's impacting the other areas. I'm not here today to give the same information I gave before. Instead, I want to rebut a statement that's been made to King 5 regarding what I've already presented. Basically that my argument is old data and that we're not talking about the same thing. I believe the term was apples and oranges. As far as the age of my data is concerned, it is from the previous census, and it's been a while since that one. However, the age of the data would only really be relevant if it was incorrect. And I think if you just take a look at the beautiful diversity of my community over here, you can see that I'm not wrong when I say that it's a very diverse community. And if you take the time to pull up any demographic information on the center of Mill Creek, you'll see that they're nowhere near as diverse. So I'm not really going to go too much into the age of the data. As far as the not talking about the same thing, apples and oranges, we're not talking about apples and oranges. We have an orange problem, and one group wants to talk about apples. And the reason they want to talk about apples is because the oranges are hard to deal with and even harder to accept. The reality of it is that this does disproportionately impact minority communities in our area. I've heard it said that with the new boundaries will bring in one additional black child, which I say, good. We should have, everyone of every race in Mill Creek should be able to attend a Mill Creek school. But that statement completely ignores the impact on Asians and all other minority groups. And additionally, I think it's a pretty good example of a cartographic concept known as black math. When you're drawing boundaries, you can sometimes, and this has been done for gerrymandering to disenfranchise people in voting, you can draw the line in such a way that every time you bring in one minority, you cut another minority out, and that way you're able to carve up the voting district. Now, this is done in voting maliciously. It was done in education with the idea that you could help people to fix our history of having discriminating in where people could live and where they could go to school. Unfortunately, this cure has now become a disease, and it is disenfranchising minority people from being able to choose where they want to go to school, where their children will get their education. And right now, the way it stands, the white people of Mill Creek still have that right, but the minority communities will not if this boundary changes. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brenner. I can assure you that the school board has seen your material. And I personally have read the articles in the paper and seen the King 5 reporting. So we have had some follow-up information as well on that. So thank you for your comments.
The next speaker is Malia Ahmed, and she is a resident of the district and a parent of a student enrolled at Mill Creek Elementary.
Good afternoon. My name is Malia Ahmed, and I'm representing many concerned parents of North Point community. I'm also a parent whose child will be affected by this change. Today, I would like to focus on the guiding principles that were established by the board prior to making the recommendations. The first one being natural and man-made barriers to safe routes will be taken under consideration. Currently, our kids walk less than half a mile where they have to cross no major streets. However, with the proposed boundary, our kids will be forced to cross not one but two busy highways, with an additional crossing of a shopping center where there's no visible crosswalks at the moment. Even if the kids were bused, it affects their after-school activities where bus service is not available. The second guideline, boundary changes should be implemented after appropriate input and discussion with affected parties. District communication came out on February 26th regarding board meeting on February 26th and February 28th. However, Mill Creek Elementary School communication was sent out to parents on February 27th, which was a day after the meeting had been held. And I have a copy of the flyer. Until that, North Point community was not affected. It seems as though when the other affected parties had the opportunity to speak during the February board meeting, the board remapped, and that is when the North Point was excluded to include the neighborhood that spoke up in February, which the change recently got published as the final recommendation, which left us all in utter shock. I would also like to ask what measures were taken to notify parents such as myself whose kids do not start school until 2019 and are not on PTA forms. Based on the discussion with Dr. Holzman, the idea is to preserve older Mill Creek communities. This is not a guiding principle, and nor was it before. It is contradicting to see the map including communities that were established in 2016 are within boundary as of today, while North Point is in the entirety of its existence of 10 years is now being excluded from the Mill Creek Elementary School. Lastly, there's no known or shared stats that prove that this emotional and physical change to our children will truly help Mill Creek Elementary improve their percentage to support free lunch program. If there is a study that exists as of today, we would like to request closure of that as we support and understand the board's decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do want to just state one thing regarding your comments that you made, that the board has not actually made any decisions at this point, that the boundaries were, at this point, have been done by a committee of actually quite a few individuals, and it's a proposed boundary revision at this time. So there's no action, and the board has not, to this point, been involved in making those decisions. Dr. Cohn.
Our third speaker this evening is Landis Friel. He is a resident of the district.
I forgot to. My daughter is a first grader at Mill Creek Elementary School. We've lived in the Meadows community, which is also in Area 4, for 12 years. And I'm not so much concerned about moving to a different school, but I am concerned about the walking along 132nd and 35th. I cross 35th every day to go to work, and in the last 3 months, I've almost been hit twice by people texting while driving. It's not a safe street, and I really don't want my daughter to walk to school, and we don't really want her to take the bus either. The other concern I have is I've asked people at the Mill Creek Elementary School several times during this whole process if they had more information about it. They said that they had not been informed of any part of it. They didn't know when the meetings were. And then I found out that the vice principal was a part of this committee, or a part of the selection committee. And I was shocked because I even asked her about it. And I didn't hear anything. And the other more of a question I have is we know several people who do not live in the boundary who go to Mill Creek. They have variances. We also know several people who do not live in the boundary who do not have variances. And they, from what I've heard, they use other people's addresses in order to go to the school. And I'm wondering what is being done about that. I think that's honestly one of my biggest concerns is I mean, we live in the boundary and we're potentially going to be pushed out. What about those people that don't live in the boundary that aren't being affected by this? That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Fourth speaker this evening is Sarah
Hello again. I'm here today to represent myself and my fellow North Point neighbors. After the public forums when Area 4's boundary lines were redrawn to remove North Point from Mill Creek Elementary in order to pull an older subdivision back in, I wanted to believe that the Boundary Committee came to their conclusion objectively following their established guiding principles. However, the more I look into it, the more uncertain I feel that this was the case. The guiding principle of neighborhoods notes the importance of ensuring that students attend schools located within close proximity to their own neighborhood. North Point is located in closer proximity to Mill Creek, while the older subdivision that the committee drew back in is in closer proximity to Penny Creek. In fact, residents of this older subdivision would need to drive right past the North Point neighborhood to even get to Mill Creek Elementary. The guiding principle of barriers notes the importance of safe walking routes for all schools, not to mention keeping current walkers as walkers even with the proposed boundary changes. Many North Point children currently walk to and from school. It would be impossible for them to walk to and from Penny Creek without jeopardizing their safety. In fact, just last fall, the Mill Creek City Council began addressing the pedestrian crossing issues on this very street. And even if busing was provided, it would be difficult for our children to participate in any after-school enrichment programs, as they'd still need to walk this route home. And finally, the guiding principle of inclusion states that boundary changes should only be implemented after appropriate input and discussions with affected parties. I asked the communications director, Leanna Albrecht, how the committee reached out to North Point after they redrew the boundary lines to push us out of Mill Creek Elementary. She stated, quote, "The committee did not reach out to neighborhoods and instead relied on communicating through school and district communication channels to families. But neither the school nor the district informed North Point about the change in our status. We still assumed we were safe. Why didn't the committee ensure that we were given an equal opportunity to provide input, especially considering that a neighboring community just south of us who was in a similar situation was given the chance to advocate for their children? It's inevitable that tension will occur as school boundary lines are shifted. The Boundary Committee facilitator addressed this very issue to highlight the necessity of establishing these and additional guiding principles for the committee to use as filters. Because at the end of the day, if the committee doesn't adhere to a set of guiding principles, won't the public perceive their decisions as being biased? Which is what happened when the committee redrew the boundaries for Area 4 to push North Point to Penny Creek and include back in an older subdivision due to the seniority status as a neighborhood. So we asked the superintendent and school board to please hold the committee accountable by, number one, looking at the proximity of both North Point and the older subdivision in relation to Mill Creek and Penny Creek Elementary. Number two, actually walking the path that North Point children would take to get to and from Penny Creek to determine if it's truly safe. And number three, determine whether the committee met the required guiding principle of inclusion when it came to North Point. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The fifth speaker this evening is Paul, and Paul, I'm sorry, I can't read your last name, so would you please pronounce it when you come up to the lectern for us? Paul is a resident of the district and has a parent who's enrolled at Heatherwood Middle School.
My name is Paul Polevko. The W's a V, pretty easy. I'm a resident of North Point. Me and my wife and my daughter moved there about 7 years ago. We specifically moved there to give our daughter a better opportunity. Higher performing schools is what we were looking for than where we were living in Linwood at the time. So we really made a big financial move. We put ourselves out there financially to get our daughter in a better school. And as I think most every parent that I talk to, and a lot of them are friends of ours, you know, it's a huge decision that we made. We put a lot of time and effort, worked hard to get to this point in our lives to be able to make that investment for our children. And we really would be devastated that that would just be swept away from us. And we would be forced into a lower performing school. And we have the upcoming meeting about the high school boundaries at the end of the month, and we're really concerned about our daughter as well being forced way north to really poor performing schools. When we specifically moved here only for the schools, that was our primary reason for our daughter. Secondly, our daughter no longer attends Mill Creek. She's in Heatherwood. Great school. We live in a great community, as the first speaker said. Unbelievable diversity. I always say to my wife and all of our friends in the community, we're, you know, a United Nations, little United Nations neighborhood. It's great to see all of the kids playing with each other of all different backgrounds. Love it. And equally important, which most of the speakers stated, was the safety. It's really a big concern for the parents, our friends, our children's friends, you know, to have those kids walk. Really, they're going to have to walk when they do all the way down 35th, which is a busy street, all the way down 132nd, which is a busy street. There's no other ways around it. You got to walk by the malls there, the stores, and you have to walk across both busy intersections to get across to that part of the school. So I really hope that you guys take into consideration the financial investments that we all made, the decisions that we made. It's not going to be easy to pick up and move in this economy either. Yeah, we could sell our house for a lot of money, but we can't get a house in a good school district under this economy in this area easily. It's a bidding war. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to come here tonight to express your views and provide input. Many of us are parents on the board, and so we share the same type of concerns as parents. So it's nice to hear from you, and hope you'll come back again soon. Thank you. Okay. With that, we are moving on to section 7.0, the consent agenda. Dr. Cohn, will you please introduce the consent agenda?
Yes, the board's consent agenda contains repetitive business items. These include, for example, meeting minutes, personnel actions, expense vouchers, and recurring contracts. Sometimes the consent agenda will include items that occur less frequently, but are of a routine business nature. The less frequently occurring consent agenda items are usually reviewed by the board in its Friday report 1 or more weeks before the board meeting, when those items are scheduled to appear on the consent agenda. This gives directors time to ask staff questions about those items or to consider a discussion about the policy implications of those items. If a consent agenda item is removed by the concurrence of 2 directors, that item is placed in new business and the remaining items are automatically renumbered by the system. The board votes on the consent agenda in a single motion. By definition, the consent agenda is not debatable. In the case of this consent agenda, the superintendent's office has received no questions or comments regarding any of the items. Therefore, the consent agenda is presented to you as published, and we ask your approval of it.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Has been moved by Director Mitchell and seconded by Director Lesane. Would any director like to remove, let's see, what is it? Remove an item from the consent agenda and place it in new business section of the agenda? Hearing no requests, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The motion carries. Section 8.0 is board comments. This is a time where directors and student representatives have an opportunity to share information or comments about their activities as they relate to district business. Student Representative Parikh, do you have anything to share this evening?
Yeah. So I guess as some of you have already heard, and you will hear here in a few minutes, I was fortunate enough to receive a scholarship award at the Intel International Science Fair last week, and I just wanted to kind of going off that note a few things about the district that I feel were really integral and critical in me being able to get this kind of achievement. So first of all, so the award was for my scientific research, which I first began working on back in freshman year when I took Jackson's Intro to Science Research course, which was taught by Ms. Tanner. And then over the course of my time at Jackson, I had several different opportunities from the school. So one was Jackson's Science Research Club. The second was the AP Capstone program, which Jackson was one of the first schools in this part of the state to implement. And that was something that really enabled me to get into this doing research as a high schooler, which is something that isn't too typical, but it's something that we have a lot of resources for at Jackson and across the district, actually. And I just wanted to note those things and express my gratitude to the district and everyone who played a role in building these systems and these opportunities for students like me way back before I was even involved with it. Yeah.
Excellent. Director Lassane.
Oh, I'm so great. It's so good to be here and to be sitting next to such fine students. You know, I would say that we have some wonderful schools within the district. You can't hear me? Okay, I apologize. We have such wonderful schools in the district, and we offer great opportunities for all of our students. They're all well-performing schools. I don't believe there are any that are lower-performing schools. They have challenges, but we are here to meet those challenges and support our students where best we can, and we do a great job at doing that. And so to sit next to a student who has done so extremely well, I am in awe. I mean, my God, I'm just sitting here and just saying, gosh, I would never have made it through high school, you know, if it were not for some of the teachers that helped me and the programs that helped me. And to see our students excel like they are doing now, and Druvik on our board as a student representative, it just goes to show, you know, we are doing something good. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate the things that you've done, and I'm so proud of you. And I'm so saddened by the fact that, you know, you're going to be leaving the board. But I know that Stanford is going to get one hell of a student from Everett Public Schools, and you especially. So I'm looking forward to hearing about great things from you. And I do have a niece who went to Stanford, so she's part of the Alumni Association, so she will keep me informed. So if I don't hear it from you, I'll hear it from her. So I am very proud of you, so please remember that. I was also proud to have attended the PTSA Council Awards Banquet. You know, with great schools come great parents and teachers and administrators who are so connected to each student and puts in a lot of work and a lot of effort to make this business tick-tock, you know, and I am so proud to be a part of this organization. We have seen some teachers that have gone, and administrators and staff have gone out of their way. I mean, they have spent their days, I mean, you could actually say that they probably have a cot in their room that they sleep on because they never go home. They spend that many hours making sure that every student is driven and given the support they need. I mean, I think that's a good thing. Please don't expect me to buy any cots for the kids. Teachers, I don't expect to do that. But it just goes to show you that they are engaged with our kids and they are there to provide everything that they can possibly need. I also attended the Music for Life concert on Friday. It seemed like so far away because I've been gone for a week and I missed the last meeting. But I really want to say this. I think we are truly focused on STEM because I think that's where the world is leading, and we have to get our kids engaged in STEM activities. That's important, but I don't want us to lose sight of the arts. Music and the arts are very valuable. It opens doors to that creative part of the brain that other subjects, the humanities, cannot. And I think we need to continue to provide that opportunity for our students. And I can say from attending that concert that we have some fantastic musicians here in our district, and we need to give them every opportunity they can. And we are moving to expand the orchestra program here, and I'm very happy about that, Dr. Cohn. I really am so happy about that. And if there's anything I can do, you know, I do have a violin at home that I need to donate, but I'm still playing it. So I will hold on to it for a couple more years before I will pull it down so I can donate it to a student who really has the desire to be involved in music.
I think in your case, Captain, voting for the budget will be just fine.
I was thinking maybe you could do a cameo next concert with your little violin. Are you finished?
I'm done.
Okay.
Yes.
Director Mitchell?
Well, I'm going to sound like a broken record because I appreciate everything Director Lesane said. I am very sad that tomorrow night I will miss the Superintendent Scholar Award because I think that award ceremony really does exemplify not simply the best of our district, but shows that each of our high schools is exceptional. Each of our three comprehensive high schools has graduation rates over 95%, I believe. So you cannot say there's a low-performing high school in our district. Sequoia is bar none the best alternative high school in the state. And with Kelly Shepard winning her award for the region last week, it just shows the great leadership there. And when I know I've told this story before, I appreciate the parents that came to speak tonight about their neighborhood, and especially the parent who spoke about the children who are not yet in school. That when elementary school 18 opened up, my neighborhood was one of those neighborhoods that was in upheaval because of how we were being divided. And I appreciate those in PTA that spoke up on my daughter's future school. And it may not be perfect, but I appreciate their voices. But that my mother asked me, was my daughter going to the best school in the district? Because she made sure that when I was a kid, I went to the best school in my district. And I said, Mom, she's going to a school in this district, and I am happy with that. And that was enough for me that we moved to the Everett School District on purpose. And that's what we did, and that's why I serve this school district. But then I am also glad, Director Lesane, for the Music for Life and the orchestra, because Mrs. Cheever has done a phenomenal job with those children at North, and they can't all go to Jackson because there's no room. So the fact that we can expand that to the north end for those children of poverty and not of poverty that go to that school that are having this opportunity, the thing that I like most about this district, well, there are so many things I like. A thing that I like a lot about this district is the fact that we consider arts and music basic education here. Every elementary school student has exposure, every middle school student has the opportunity, and every high school student to graduate is required. So it is the fact that we do respect, and I hope, like you said, it is always a part of this district. So I'm a broken record, but I appreciate what you said.
Thank you. Well, I think my colleagues have covered it all. It is a busy time of year. It's a good time of year. We have a lot of celebrations, which always makes it fun, although I'm going to be hard pressed to see the Superintendent Scholarship Award as good as last year. But it's still one of my favorites. I agree. And yes, indeed, the community engagement that's going on. I appreciate the parents that came tonight to speak about their children and share their views with us in a very respectful manner. It's always helpful when we have an opportunity to engage with our community, both the ones that we've been doing at the high school level and again here at the elementary school level. So with that, good thing there wasn't 5 of us tonight. We'd run out of time. Let's move on. And that takes us to section 9.0, our superintendent's report.
Very good. I think I might have to acquire some of
You
that
can
time.
borrow
Yeah, thanks.
a few minutes.
Thanks very much.
At a cost.
My report starts out this evening with a selection of signs that share an important reminder of how great all of us can be, and that kindness truly matters. And I too appreciate that we heard very respectfully from folks this evening. And I think these signs that are hung in the halls of Jackson High School remind us that generally that helps us work more effectively, more productively together. And that, I think, is a nice way to start the superintendent's report this evening. Want to show you a couple of pictures. Snohomish County's Children's Commission recently recognized Madison Alameda, Blake Burr, and David Guzman-Reyes from Cedarwood Elementary as We Value Kids Award winners for 2018. Students are pictured here with their families, and the students were nominated by their teachers, which acknowledges them in grades K-3, kids who are consistently kind to others, who go out of their way to include children beyond their own group, and who are regularly thoughtful and generous with their time and their toys. So I thought you'd appreciate that. Here we have a picture of 3 young people at the Society for Science and the Public in partnership with the Intel Foundation. These folks announced grant awards for the 2018 Intel International Science and Engineering Fair. Student winners were 9th through 12th grade students who earned the right to compete at this prestigious fair by winning a top prize at a local, regional, state, or national science fair. In Pittsburgh last week, after competing against 1,800 high school students from more than 75 countries, regions, and territories, Druvik was awarded an Intel Foundation Young Scientist Award and a grand prize of $50,000. His winning project is called a novel sol-gel-derived speak silicon dioxide composite membrane for the vanadium redox flow battery. Did I get it, Druvik? Love it. We're all very, very proud of you. And tonight we're going to take just a moment to break in the middle. I'm sorry, there is no cake. We're going to break right in the middle of my report. We'd like to present you with a certificate. We'd like your parents to come up to the dais, and we'd like to get a picture with you and them and the board members, and then I'm going to go ahead and finish my report. Would that be all right? Fantastic.
Am I bringing this? Sure. Oh, I have the honor of presenting you a certificate of recognition for earning Intel's Foundation Young Scientist First Place and Best in Category Awards at the International Science and Engineering Fair. Congratulations for representing yourself and the district in exemplary manner.
So here's what we'd like to do. Let's put you right in front of this picture.
All right.
Put your parents next to you and the board members.
One on either side.
And gather around. How's that?
Yeah.
Come on, directors. Okay? All right. Got a picture there?
Okay, big
Good.
smiles. We'll do another one. It's perfect, thank you.
Great. We've got
Yes.
And your daughter graduated. Yeah, no, she's you're done now, right? Is this her last year? And so she'll be graduating. You don't have to make a decision on when.
She's going to Boston and he's going to California.
Oh, lucky you.
I find a job somewhere.
Somewhere, maybe right in the middle, so you can just take one plane. Oh, okay. Congratulations.
Well, it was just so nice, though, Painfield to San Francisco.
Yeah.
That's right, that's right. You can easily get there.
Yeah.
And you can even, oh, for Stanford, you can't take the BART, so.
Yeah, I can take Caltrain.
You can take Caltrains, yeah. You can take Caltrains to the airport. You can get right up here. Yeah, BART.
Caltrains is San Francisco, is Los Angeles.
No, Caltrains. They have Caltrains in San Francisco, yeah. And then the BART doesn't go down there.
That's awesome. Thank you for that.
So we just wanted to make sure that you know how much we appreciate you and how proud we are of you. And we're going to save half of all of that for the next meeting when it's your last meeting and we do our farewell. Okay?
Cake then.
Cake is possible, yes. Yes. So we also want you to know that what?
I said, look at that.
Yeah, what, is there a problem?
No.
Oh, okay. We want you to know that 9 Snohomish County teens are among 30 area students who will spend part of their summers researching cures for cancer after being accepted to 2-week paid internships at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in Seattle. Everett High School has 2 rising stars. Coulter Mason, oh, that was what you were. And Cameron Davis, who will participate in this amazing opportunity. I think we're going to have to do a recognition, certificates, things of that nature. And we want you to know that we're congratulating Everett High School students Jocelyn Ramirez and Carlos Rodriguez. They each earned top awards in the 20th annual Spanish literacy contest. I believe we saw some students last year or the year before who won this award. This year's topic was celebrating the diversity and the richness of our culture. Students from 110 schools statewide participated and submitted 520 essays. Jocelyn's a senior student of AP Spanish Literature. She earned first place in the category of poetry as a Spanish speaker. Carlos is a sophomore. He's a student of AP Spanish Language, and he earned an honorable mention for his narrative essay in the category Spanish speakers. This is the 8th consecutive year Everett High's AP Spanish teacher, Margarita Hurtado's students have earned awards. We thought that was worth a mention this evening. Another winning season for the Jackson High School girls softball team with a 2-0 win over number 4 seed Monroe. These amazing young women won the Wesco 4A championship for the 4th consecutive year. We wanted you to know that these young ladies have won 4 in a row, which is why they're all holding up 4 fingers. I know I counted that they all had 4 fingers before I put the picture in the presentation. And we wanted to recognize and congratulate them this evening. Timberwolves baseball postseason run ended in the Class 4A state quarterfinals. 2-1 loss to Skyview was an exciting game as the first and second place high school baseball teams came together to play in the 4A Northwest District Championship. This is a wonderfully winning team, and we want to congratulate them on their state regional tournament. It's the first time since 2012. We also want to congratulate Everett High School and Jackson High School. 2018 U.S. News high school rankings were released. The schools each earned a silver medal. They were ranked based on their performance on state-required tests and how well they prepare students for college. I want to note that. Oh, gee, did I flip ahead? Sorry.
That's good.
T-Wolves. Oh, that's weird. They're reversed in my thing. So sorry, there we go. Where'd it go? It's just plain missing, isn't it? All right, well, the 2018 rankings have Everett High and Jackson High as silver award winners. And I want you to know that over the last several years, typically it's 2 schools that are in and 1 school that's out. With the school, it's very close. So we're very proud of the schools and their work. And the slide that's up in front of you right now is about second graders, I should say, at Woodside Elementary. They received some hands-on learning about the weather. Q13 Fox News meteorologist and her photographer visited Woodside Elementary. She shared her passion for weather and science, and the second grade classes loved it. They talked about the weather. They put together forecasts. They brought a whole kit of hands-on experiments and activities and helped bring weather phenomena to life for these young people, and we thought you'd like to see a picture of them. Now, the next photo is of Everett Naval Junior ROTC Senior Naval Instructor, Commander Rick Guile. He received notification at, and this was a surprise, at the Navy Ball that the NJROTC kids put on, the cadets put on. He received a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award for his lifetime commitment to building a stronger nation through volunteer service. This was a wonderful honor and a big surprise for Rick, and we all know how richly this was deserved. He and the parents and the junior naval instructor, they just do a tremendous job with this program and these young men and women. We have held 2 of 3 community conversations aimed at gathering community input on high school enrollment growth. We have 1 to go. The 3rd meeting is at Jackson High on Tuesday, May 29. And I think that day the board has 2 special meetings, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. It is a busy week for you all that week. We want you to know that the Festival of Strings has been held and it showcased student talent in the district, and we've allocated resources, as Director Lassane mentioned, to support revitalization of our orchestra program. This really is a wonderful opportunity to see students perform. This was May 15. You all were at Cascade High School involved in a community conversation. This was a Festival of Strings held at Everett Civic Auditorium. It featured Jackson High School, Gateway Middle School, Heatherwood Middle School orchestras, and their feeder elementary school strings programs participants. I want you to know interest in strings and orchestra has grown at the elementary level, and we're seeing a larger number of students enrolling, and we expect to stand up programs at Evergreen Middle School and Everett High School this year, and North is now generating student demand for that, and we're very, very proud of the program at North. We want you to know the middle school art show was held this last week. Some of you had the opportunity to walk around the CRC and see the impressive artworks that middle schools are producing. I think some of you also attended the high school show. I want you to know that the ceremony was really very nice. Students were able to celebrate their work. We had really a room full over in the Port Gardner rooms, just as we did at the high school art show. The Best in Show winner was Ryan Miller for her piece, The Swan. And I did something a little different at this one. I interviewed the students so that they didn't have to speak extemporaneously. And I think that works a little bit better when students sort of have this stage fright glaze occur. Just sort of talking to somebody, if they can forget they're up in front of an audience, works a little bit better. And we were able to hear a little bit from Ryan about how she envisioned the piece, how it came to be, and that she really didn't think it was that good when she was doing it. Yet it won Best in Show. So we're very proud of her, and wanted you to know that the next show is the elementary art show, and we'll be getting information to you about that. We've got summer school registration underway. As of today, at least when I wrote this, there were 1,149 students registered at elementary, 290 middle school, 408 for high school, including our Skill Center programs that we're operating through the East Side Skill Center, the WANIC program this year. There are 57 students registered for extended school year. That means the total registration is 1,904. We had a total last year of 2,125. I will not be surprised if we surpass the 2,125. As you heard this evening, the Elementary Boundary Committee completed its work and submitted a recommendation for superintendent review. We're in the process right now of seeking online input about the recommendation. Of course, people can write as well. We encourage them to put their comments in writing. To date, and this, by the way, changes, could be any minute. To date, we've received 178 responses. At least that's what we had when I wrote this piece. And we'll be taking communication through the website or email, which we then put into the website, until the 25th, May 25th, the close business. And then we're going to produce a document that includes all the input and a summary of it. And Mr. Gunn will assemble a team for me to look at that input and work with me to determine whether or not I will make any changes in the recommendation Now, I want to make sure that we're clear about this. The committee's work is done. Their final recommendation after community meetings, where they took input, where they changed their mind a number of times as a result of input that people provided, was produced, and that's what's published. Now it's my turn. We'll now take input. I'll assemble a group to do that work. You'll receive it. Our plan is to give it to you on June 5, and then at the next meeting, take public comment on it. So we'll work with the board president to design whether we need more public comment as a result of that, that recommendation. Then you have it for a while. You can choose whether to take additional public comment after that or not, and then we expect you to be able to make a decision by fall so that we can tell people what the boundaries are for the following year, that start the following year. So 3 opportunities for input, actually more than 3, but 3 phases of input so that folks have an opportunity to change the committee's mind, influence my thinking, and then influence your thinking after it goes through a couple of different stages. All right? We want you to know that we're underway with safety and security upgrades. The bids were received for the access control system and video intercom system. It's going to be installed at 16 sites this summer. And I think we're in the process of accepting, or we received bids on the major renovations as well. And I think I heard today or last night from the architect that they came in under the estimate, not necessarily over our original plans, but under the estimate, which is really great news. And those are expected to be completed before the new school year starts. So we're very excited about that. I want to remind you, in light of what we're seeing and hearing from across the country, that you took action and the community supported that action through the approval of a capital levy, which along with some other resources contains almost $9 million for capital facilities improvements aimed at safety and security. In addition, over the last year and the next year, we expect to spend almost $1 million, somewhere between 2/3 and $1 million on increased safety and security. Everything from additional SRO time to our own security staff to additional playground supervision and other supervision in our schools. You'll be hearing more about that over the next several weeks, but we wanted you to know about that construction update. Also wanted you to know that Elementary 18 work has begun, the general contractor. Tiger Construction is mobilized at the site, removed trees and vegetation. In the area of the site where the building is going to be constructed, they've undertaken earthwork in preparation for building foundations and the floor slab. And I have a video for you, but I think I've run a little bit over time tonight. You want to see the video, huh? You're excited to see the video? All right, let me see if I can play the video. I'm not entirely sure I can make this video play. Let me try one more time to see if I can get the video to play. No, I don't think I'm going to get there tonight. We're gonna have to try again a little bit later. No, wait, wait, just a minute. Let's try that. All right. Uh-oh. Yeah, I know. You know what? This machine is just not behaving. Seriously. I mean.
Your mouse is going all over the place.
My mouse is going everywhere. Yeah. So I'm gonna escape from this, and I'm gonna take it down, and I'm gonna tell you that I'm gonna try to show you a video every time we have a superintendent's report, but not tonight. Thank you all very much. That's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you. That moves us on to section 10.0, strategic progress monitoring. And I believe Mr. Gunn is going to walk us through the proposed changes to the annual strategic plan for 2018-19.
Yes, that is what I'm going to do tonight. As soon as I get the presentation up, I'll begin. Okay, so tonight, the annual update to the strategic plan for next year's work. We always start off with the strategic links for our work tonight. We could list the entire strategic plan as linking to this item, but we narrow it down to a couple in the 3.5 area for you. Okay, so the objective is that we're going to have you review the changes tonight, and then we will be taking any comments or suggestions that you have and bringing it back to you for approval at an upcoming board meeting. I believe that we're planning right now for June 5th, which would be the next board meeting, assuming that your changes aren't going to be very extensive. So an overview of the changes tonight, and I will just kind of start off by saying fairly minor changes, really. In the key performance outcome area 2.3A, minor changes for clarity and alignment. And I'll show you that in a little bit more detail in just a minute. In the KPOs 3.4A, B, and C, they're actually only A and B right now. We're going to be adding one, so it increases that to A, B, and C. But those changes are really for clarity and alignment, as well as a new KPO to strengthen the focus on safety and security in our facilities. So let's start off with the first one. This is in the strategic priority area number 2, which is inspiration, innovation, and information. This has to do with how staff apply 21st century knowledge and skills to improve professional practice and productivity in support of student learning. So the change is to enhance the description, the key performance outcome, 2.3A, to add the words citizenship and growth mindset in that. So as you can tell, it very clearly aligns with the 21st century skills and knowledge that we've been focusing on for the duration of our strategic plan. And the second change is also in people, structure, and systems, the priority area number 3 for goal 3.4. And this has to do with how our district implements systems and best practices to support and sustain school and district safety, security, and emergency preparedness. So, so the changes are that in 3.4A, we have added the words, added socially in there. Physically already had appeared, so we've changed the order of some of the descriptors here. So I'll read it, the changed key performance outcome will read, our students and staff learn and work in a physically, socially, emotionally, and intellectually safe and secure environment. And the reason for that change is twofold. One is to kind of differentiate it from, or to make room in a sense, for 3.4B, which is our facilities are intentionally managed to support safety and security. And then 3.4C, the change there is really because we've inserted a new B in that. So the other aspect of 3.4A is just, again, to heighten or clarify and focus our attention on safety and security throughout our operations, but especially in our facilities. So that is in alignment with the work, certainly in the bond and the levy, the safety and security upgrades, as well as the others that Dr. Cohn mentioned here just a few minutes ago. Some next steps, assuming that you're going to give us the changes or give us the approval to proceed to June 5th for the approval. We will ask you for the approval of the strategic plan then. We will provide the annual operating plan, which the cabinet and the superintendent have already been working on for a number of months, the annual operating plan update for next year. We'll present that to you in a consent agenda item for acceptance on June 19, and then that will kick off the work of the cabinet in July and August, and all of the people in the district that support the work of the strategic plan in July and August to develop those, to include the annual operating plan items, the action plans and KPIs in their annual work plans and performance goals. And then, of course, the annual end of year report, July 3rd, which is when we'll summarize the progress made to date or made for the entire year on this strategic plan. So with that, I'll open it up to you for conversation, discussions, questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the addition of 3.4B to focus the safety on our facilities as well as the students, since that's a big part of keeping our schools safe. Directors, do you have any questions for Mr. Gunn or any concerns?
Just two comments mostly. You know, we've been hearing a lot about, or hearing about harder schools, which I think, you know, we are doing with some of our barriers that we're putting in, our SROs, but schools are still need to be that social emotional place that necessarily hardness doesn't give. And so I do appreciate this change really in that social, adding that socially word in there. Because the work that many of our schools have done, making sure that the leadership of the school, the teachers of the school know each student and can sense changes in those students, that you know, we don't know what will keep our kids 100% safe. But I believe what I've read here, what Dr. Cohn spoke about with the levy that we had, I think we are doing a fine job. So thank you for these additions.
Thanks.
I do like the idea of changing. Sorry about that. I do like the idea of changing self-direction to growth mindset, because I think growth mindset encompasses self-direction, motivation, and that grit that we were talking about before. So I think that's a good flow to the next generation, so to speak. Citizenship, does that also incorporate digital citizenship, or does it include the whole picture of citizenship civically as well as socially as well as digital? Would we consider that a combination of everything?
Yes, I believe so. And I'm getting the nod from Peter Scott over here as well.
Okay, absolutely. All the way around. Thank you.
Comments or questions? Okay. With that, we will proceed to, we're not taking any action.
No, we'll bring it back to you.
No.
This is
Yeah, okay,
This is actually a information item.
right. Thank you.
Yeah, this
You're
is an
welcome.
information item.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
I believe up next, we have 10.02, progress to graduation for the class of 2018.
Well, this is old news. We do this every year.
I know.
The numbers change, though.
Yeah, they do. They go up.
And it's one of our favorite presentations.
Oh, good. And Tracy already gave it away, 95%. Well, I'm really glad to be here tonight and to share how our current class of 2018, I can't believe it, we're in the last few weeks before June commencement. It is busy, busy, busy. So this is the story of where we are right now and the work that's going to take place over the next few months. So graduation rates, which we've shared before around the classes of 2016 and 2017, the progress for the class of 2018, and then all of the systems of support that we have to ensure all students graduate. With that, we certainly have grown our graduation rates. You can see our 5 and our 4-year rates. And when we get to January and February, we will see our rounds from the previous year. So we'll have our 2018 4-year and our 2017 5-year. So with our 5-year, we're at 95.2 and our 4-year at 92.9. Our special education graduation rates keep trudging upward. I mean, they've made a lot of progress in that area. That has been a huge focus of our on-time graduation team. Becky Clifford, who's sitting here, and her team have been integral to looking at each student, so you can see it in those rates. Our English learner graduation rates are outstanding. They're the highest in the state. If you were to take out all of the districts that have 100 or less students, which is just a handful, and look at these, we are certainly the highest. And again, it's a concerted effort. Of course, students are at the heart of that, but we have many systems in place to ensure that they graduate on time. If you look at subgroups of students, and this is based on our 5-year graduation rates, you can look at it in lots of different ways. This covers us through the class of 2016. What you see there is that for large groups of students, because it's broken out by subgroups, that we are up in all of those areas. And then where we are down is where our numbers of students are much smaller. And so the variations show up in those rates. So for our American Indian students, our African American students, our Pacific Islanders, and then our group of 2 or more race students, where there is a smaller number, we do often see a lot more ups and downs. It is always a concern of ours, no matter which group it is, that we make sure each student is graduating. And if it's a small group of students, that we can be very mindful of their progress. And we do a very good job at that. So for our classes of 2016 and 2017, by school, again, Tracy already gave it away, we're above 95%. So we're going to see Cascade, Everett, and Jackson, where not only are we over 95% for our 4-year rate, we are very, very close to 100% for each of these. So for Cascade, we're at 97% pretty much. When we look at Everett High, again, about 97%. When we look at our 5-year rate, and 97% for our 4-year rate. If you look at Jackson at 99% for their 5-year rate, and 95%, 95.2 for their 4-year rate, moving very close to 100% for Sequoia. Again, great work for an alternative school where the numbers of students, again, you can see the variations year to year. They do tremendous work to ensure our students graduate. And you already know that students from our other schools attend the school, and they do it for lots of reasons. There are lots of flexible options that Sequoia offers. Kids need different environments, and Sequoia certainly offers that. So to our class of 2018, the class of 2018 needs 22 credits to graduate. They also need to meet standard on their English language arts assessment. That's been the Smarter Balanced assessment. And then they need to meet standard in math, and that can be the math, it can be the algebra EOC or the geometry EOC, or they can take the Smarter Balanced. And of course, many students also have other options as we move ahead. And tonight we'll also share about the expedited assessment appeals process, which is another option that some kids have. Students also need to complete the high school and beyond plan, and that takes place in many different venues, largely through our college and career readiness seminar. It also happens through AP research, which we heard about earlier. It happens through our AVID 12 class, our AP government class, and starting next year, our Marketing 4 class will also offer it as an option as part of the coursework. If we look by assessment at our red light, green light slide, so we have the actual stoplight in the center there. What you see is that we have more students overall in the class of 2018 than we did last year, 34 more students than the class of 2017. Then if you look on the left, you'll see the students who are on track in terms of their credits. So that's the green part. They're on track with credits. And then everything below that is, did they meet the assessment in this area? So this is English language arts. So we saw more kids on track, which is wonderful. And they're moving towards graduation here. And then generally, everything was very level in terms of meeting the assessments. Then if you look to the right-hand side, where the red is, those are students who are not on track in terms of their credits to graduate. And so we saw fewer of them meeting standard on English language arts. And so overall, we have more kids meeting the English language arts assessment requirement, but because of how this balances out, it looks like a decline overall, and that's based on the credits.
I have a question. When I look at the not met standards, it says 33 students at 3%, but then when you look further down, it has basic and special ed and EL. Does some kids fit 2 or more categories, and so that's why the numbers are different?
Yes, they're not of 100, they're of 100% of the students in our general ed program, special education program, and EL program, and if they're in special education or in our English language program, they could be in both.
Okay.
And so it doesn't break it out with all of those finer points.
Thank you.
So with that, what you see is that actually overall, students are meeting their assessment requirements, but when you look at small groups of students, and that's what you see here, there are larger fluctuations. So this is a nice chart for looking, and unlike many other years where we saw lots of greens, we have a lot of students meeting overall. So I usually mark if there have been huge gains, that we saw some gains that were small, but if it's over 3%, I like to share with you the ups and the downs. And so with some of the small numbers, and you can see for our Alaska Native, American Indian, we have 8 students in that group. So when you see fluctuations of 2 students, certainly you're going to get a big change. But we have larger groups in there too. Our Hispanic students are certainly a larger group. Our low-income students also, they're a group where we spend a lot of time and concern around. So we work with those groups to make sure that they meet standard. We have a lot of different practices around that. For math, our math assessment, pretty level in terms of the students meeting standard. You can see some real gains in some of the subgroups listed below. And then here, fewer changes overall, really mostly about some of the fluctuations in the numbers of students. One of the offerings that came up last summer for assessments is the expedited assessment appeals process. And what this is for the classes of 2014 through 2018, so we're talking about the class of 2018, House Bill 2224 actually gave a whole range of different options where a student could basically tell us that they are qualified for college and career options by demonstrating it in different ways. And so the list there includes that a student who had not met standard in math or in English language arts could show that they were in a college level course in high school. And if it was in respective English language arts or math, we could use that to document that they had passed that class, and then we could use it to actually meet the standard in that area. And then another option is admission to higher education, so a college program, or an award of a scholarship, or enlistment in a branch of the military. And what we found is that kids have used this option, and it's a win-win. We have had opportunities to really talk with students about what their post-secondary plans really are, as well as make sure that their assessment requirements in this case are met as well. So with that, we have tracked all year long students who were on track in terms of their credits, and then even those who weren't, because we see fluctuations through the school year. And we had in a OneNote, and you see images here, for every student who had not met their assessments, and initially we had longer lists, for each student, we have a tab in there, and next to it, we actually have a document from an institution. And all of our students in there have admissions letters from colleges all over the place, largely Everett Community College, but definitely Edmonds Community College, Shoreline, and then a few four-year universities and so forth. So the win-win in that scenario is we really have plans for kids and got to sit with them and work on those pieces. Now, we can't actually file those expedited assessment appeals until 2 weeks prior to graduation. So students who were graduating early or were in previous grad years, we were able to graduate through that. So we've had 4 students who have been able to graduate as a result of the expedited assessment appeals. But we have about 25 ready to go 2 weeks from now.
So if they have a letter of acceptance at a college or a scholarship, do they have to accept it in order for it to count as a?
No, not for it to count, but we are working and using it in the win-win scenario to work with students to make sure that they take the next steps.
Okay.
But not for this particular part of it.
We can't say, and they accepted it. They accepted that letter.
Yes, many of them have, and I've had that opportunity to work with them individually.
Okay, gotcha.
So some of the data that we didn't have previously comes from the state, and if you've seen that they have quite a few reports presented recently that talk about 9th grade failures. You've also seen reports through OSPI that talk about attendance, and many others. Our graduation rates are also on OSPI. This is the first year really that we would see the class of 2018 and what it looked like in their 9th grade year and their failures in their core areas. And so what this chart is sharing is by race, whether students were failing one of their core areas. And so the gray line that you see on each bar is the state average for failures in that particular subgroup. And so for each of these groups, if they are to the right of that line, that means they're failing at a higher rate. And if they were to the left of the line, they were failing at a lower rate, which is more desirable. So you can see through there that many of them are near the state average, but Our American Indian Alaska Native is higher than the state. You can also see that our Native Hawaiian other Pacific Islander is also above the state. And then our Asian group failed classes at a lower rate than the state. A lot of information on that slide. Formatted in a similar way as the next slide, which is by program. And we haven't really focused in these presentations around 504 plans, but around our English language learners, what you'll see there is that they were failing at a lower rate than the state. And you could also have seen, if we matched up, our graduation rates were higher than most of they're all of the state. Also, our female and male students, our male students are actually failing at a lower rate than the state average, although our females are not failing at such a high rate and close to the average. Our special education students are failing at a slightly higher rate. So with the class of 2018, you already know, because I get to share with you all the time, the work of our on-time graduation team. One of the things that was presented this spring is we have gone, of course, to each of the schools, and we talk about their data up close. And Lance Bala, our principal of Everett High School, actually came back to the group and said, we need to really frame our essential question. We had framed questions, but he's like, it's not getting at the big picture. And so he presented this question, which is, how do we design and implement sustainable and targeted, and these have been themes and they continue to be themes for us, district-wide, iterative, recursive, student-centered, boy, that's very descriptive, he's a writer, approaches of support that will result in connecting more students to school and thereby connecting them to graduation success. And so you see implicit in there the relationships with students being key to ensuring that students are successful through high school, making sure they actually pass their classes, but then making sure they graduate and have plans for the future. Our teams are multi-layered, as you already know. Our on-time graduation team is a group of administrators, so I get to take part in it. Many of the people you see up here are part of it, our principals. And then we work with our counselors, our success coordinators, many other layers that support all of this work. And then at the schools, you see basically the same protocol taking place, where their teams of counselors, support staff, teachers with their administrators are working through what they know about each student at their school, making sure that there are targeted supports for any student that really needs it. And that can be a wide range of things. Back to the last presentation, some of it is very social, emotional, in terms of its nature and making sure kids are connected with trusted adults. But grades, of course, matter, attendance matters, and you see that data week after week with those teams. And what we see overall is that no opportunity is missed. People are very committed to this work and the follow-through. Everyone takes it as their own charge to make sure that kids are really getting what they need. Through the year, we have seasons, basically. So if you look at this, there really are sort of 4 seasons of graduation. We start the year, we reflect on the past, and that's really that red bar. The green bar, we start to deep dive into OTG for All, where we look at all of our grades 9 through 12 and make sure that all of our grades are on track and that we have all of our supports in place, our Saturday programs, our after school, our during the day supports. As we get to second semester, which is overcoming barriers to OTG, we have first semester data to look at. We reflect on what's going on. What else can we build? We're getting ready for the home stretch. And then the last piece in the blue bar is the runway to graduation and summer transition. We are in that right now, which means looking very closely at each student, building graduation plans. Summer school is ready to go. We have a lot of pieces ready so that we make sure kids graduate in June. And if they aren't able to do that, that they're going to be able to graduate in the summer. We have quite a few strategies. Really, a lot of them are nuanced. You've seen many of these before, but every time we do this work, it becomes deeper and richer, and more people have insights about how to make it better. So it's all about communication. Attendance is key. Our social emotional piece. We check under the hood behind the credit checks. It's not enough to know how many credits, but what is it that they're missing credits in? Our one-to-one devices at Sequoia and Everett High School have been great in giving kids opportunities for learning differently, but also making up credits and being engaged in different ways. We have contracts and meetings with students and their families, lots of credit recovery options and tutoring. We have middle school options for high school credit, world language credits for Language proficiency, we have assessment credit recovery options also. We're focused on engagement, and then overall, it's about our positive culture. And so building that has been key to it as well. Our credit recovery continues to be nuanced too, where we have lots of just-in-time credit recovery options. It's coordinated through summer school. We have in-school options. They're referred to as Success Time or SOAR. Fuel Ed is sometimes part of that, but it can take the form of many different kinds of programs, a whole bunch of different opportunities. Many teachers actually create opportunities for students, especially if they were very close to passing a class. And we start in 9th grade and not wait until their senior year. Another piece of our graduation work is really tracking dropouts. This is work, again, that's nuanced because each month we produce monthly reports that schools really take ownership over and follow through and sign their initials next to each student and what follow through each of them has had. We have weekly automated reports, which we've had for several years now, but those too get better. We have dropout plans that are centralized. We have information from the state that we follow up on nearly daily to track kids. We also track through our variance programs and our, school choice programs and our declaration of intent, which means that kids are in homeschool programs. So making sure that we have paperwork in place if students and their families have chosen that. Also, our data sharing agreements through Everett Community College and Edmonds Community College have meant that we found many students, because if they're not with us, many of them who are especially 18 and older, even if they haven't graduated, can go to those schools without a high school diploma and start their high school programs there or join their community college programs with their peers. So we find them there. WorkSource, lots of calls, emails, home visits, and outreach that we do. I get to share this slide with you year after year, and the arrow pointing down is a good thing because we want fewer dropouts. It's actually, when I pulled this, I was surprised myself at even how much has happened between last year and this year. So we're at an all-time low in terms of our tracking to 73 students at the end of April when I was pulling this. We've done some tracking also, especially this last year, around what happens if our dropouts re-enroll? Where are they going? Many of them, and that's what you see here in part, is that they end up going back to one of their home schools. So that would be Everett High School, Cascade, or Jackson, where you see intake and retake at Sequoia. Many of them are going on and moving on to Sequoia as a different option. They go to other schools in Washington State. We have our Graduation Alliance program. You can see all the way down the line. You can see tucked in there Edmonds and Everett Community College. They're finding their ways into other programs. Most of our kids are finding their ways into school programs of some kind and know that they need to finish. And if we're fortunate, we get to help them with that process as well. Our Graduation Alliance program is an Open Doors 14-18 program. The program allows us to take back students who have dropped out previously. We have an online program. We assist them in earning credits as well as graduating. It's an Everett Public Schools high school diploma. Over the years, it's really sustained. We have a lot of kids who start with 5, 6, 7 credits and accumulate credits. There are students who end up in and out of the program, and some are students who exit the program, again, like our larger picture of dropouts, go back to one of their home schools as well. This year, we have 7 graduates, and that was of a month ago. We actually have 2 more the last 2 weeks. And right now, we have about 70 students who are enrolled. They're continuing their enrollment in a way that we didn't see previously. And of a month ago, it was 143. It's probably up to about 160 overall students who have been enrolled this school year. We have summer programs that supported the class of 2018. You hear lots about our summer program, but it's an outstanding program, really gets kids on track, and many different opportunities for earning credits, both credit recovery and credits online, as well as those WANIC programs that you heard about for kids that opt into those. Our Everett Public Schools Foundation has been a great supporter in making sure that students who cannot pay for the online classes are supported through scholarships, and so we still use those. And we do a lot of coordinated meetings. At this point, it's about once a week, and we work through all the details. That was just yesterday. Our August graduates, so students who are not working through our commencement in June, many of them the day after are here with us. Our schools start summer school essentially right there with teachers who are ready to help them because if they're senior teachers, they may not have other scheduled courses. And then July 2nd, our summer program starts, and that includes an area in the Career Center where we have extra staff who go out in a van and do home visits. Make sure that students, if they didn't take the transportation provided otherwise, have a ride. We call them, we text them, we follow through on all the details that they need to graduate. And sometimes it's not our traditional offerings through summer school, and we find alternative ways to get there. Our continuing seniors, and there's very few that fall in there, many of the students who are continuing are on our Goal and Strive programs, so they're part of our special education programs. But students who are outside those programs, there's very few of them. They are our priority for anything that they need when they return in September. Usually they've been working with us all through August, even when summer school is over, and then they start school again. We saw this past year 4 students within a month or 2 after the summer had ended finish their requirements. So they didn't quite make the graduation for August, but they were still working towards it and were able to do so shortly after. So in summary, we have lots of celebrations because there's a lot of great work that takes place. It is built on relationships, and all of this work is built on student by student, really reaching each student. And we continue to develop our work. It becomes more nuanced. We learn new things about what we're doing and make it better, so we evolve and we build on past successes. And then the key has really been around collaboration, and that's working with you and all the way to the classroom teacher, paraprofessionals, our classified staff, and everyone in between, because so many people are really involved in what happens for our students to graduate. I throw this slide in because before you know it, we have the class of 2021 who are our 9th graders who will need 24 credits. And so they're part of this larger picture, not necessarily the class of 2018, and just making sure they're on track as well. And thank you.
Directors, do you have any comments or questions? Or student representative?
Yeah, so I guess I'll go. So I have 2 questions. So first, about the expedited appeals process. So I saw on the slide that it said it's for classes of 2014 through 2018. And I think I remember that for the new 24 credit program for the later graduating classes that this might be something that was going to be removed as an option. Is that still the case, or is...
Yeah, right now it won't apply to any of our students with the 24 credit requirements. Okay. And they at this point will need to take the Washington Comprehensive Assessment of Science, if I remembered what WCAS stands for properly. So right now science is back on the table for the class of 2021.
Okay.
So they won't have this as an option. It's been a great option. Mm-hmm.
And second, so for the August graduates,
yes.
Are we counting those graduates in the 4-year or the 5-year graduation rate?
That's a great question. They're included in our 4-year rate. So kids who graduate in August are on-time graduates. Of course, we want them to graduate in June. We work really hard on that, and so do they. But for kids who need it, it's a great option.
Yeah.
Director Mitchell?
Oh, sorry. Cottonwood.
I know it's everywhere.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you. And I'm also going to say thank you to everyone within the district that helps each of these students and all of our community partners. One quick question, though. Mm-hmm. For the students that land someplace else that you can verify, are they still considered one of our dropouts, or are we able to claim whatever they're doing someplace else? Or
that's a great question. Okay. So when I was sharing dropouts and where they may have arrived, when they show up in another program or back in our schools, they're no longer a dropout.
Okay.
So that's our ultimate goal.
Okay. So
have them back in school.
So if they go to a different district, do they get transferred off of our rolls?
Exactly.
And then they graduate from that district?
That's correct.
Okay.
If they go to the community college, that's part of the information we get from the community colleges. The community college tells us they're enrolled in a program that will allow them to get a high school diploma also. And any of their associate's degrees offer that when they finish that. We get verification back, and then we're able to count them as a transfer. Yeah.
Great, I think that's it. No questions from me. Thank you so much
Okay.
for
Thank
detailed
you,
information. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And with that, I believe we're going to take a 15-minute break, which puts us back here at 6:22, 3? Somewhere in that neighborhood?
Our late start time is good.
Yeah?
So it's not going to show anything. I can handwrite everything.
We'll be fine.
Okay.
We're good. The scoreboard's down for a minute.
Right. Okay, we're going to get started again here. After the break, we are moving on to section 11.0, our information and discussion. And tonight, Mr. Gunn is joining us once again to bring us the capital facilities plan for 2018 through 23. Mr.
All
Gunn.
right. Yes, thank you very much. Yes, so tonight we are bringing for your review and discussion an overview of a draft of our capital facilities plan 2018-23. This is a plan that we update every 2 years, and so this is the update year of that, of the plan. Once it's been reviewed and approved by you, it will go to the county, Snohomish County, and then ultimately the city of Everett for consideration and approval. Once all that happens, which should happen by the no later than the end of 2018, by the end of this calendar year, the one of the implications of that is that the new impact fees will go into effect. And those are fees that we collect from developers of new housing units. And those will go into effect January 1st, 2019. And they will be in effect for 2 years. So that's kind of the high-level overview of tonight. We will bring this, by the way, to you for further review and conversation, the final draft to you in August. That's the plan. But right now, we have already submitted a draft to Snohomish County. They start the process early in 2018, in the year before it becomes effective. And one of the first things they do is assemble a group of Snohomish County School District representatives, and then they have a number of briefings with them, and then they ask the school districts to submit a draft to them for their technical review. So the county has already started a technical review of our plan, along with almost all of the other school districts in the county, and we expect their comments back to us fairly soon. So
in this draft, do we have our estimated or our desired impact fee?
yes, we do. You're cutting to the chase there, and I can certainly do that.
Right ahead.
It does, very much. Okay, so just briefly, a capital facilities plan has a whole series of elements that are in it as described and required by the Growth Management Act. So the state legislature years ago adopted the GMA that said schools, along with other special service districts and cities and counties, have to adopt a capital facilities plan. And all of this has to kind of hang together and support each other to meet the needs of the projected growth. So in our county, the Snohomish County kind of coordinates all the school districts' planning process. And then once that's been approved by the county, then at least in the city of Everett, the city adopts as well. Okay, so a capital facilities plan contains future student enrollment forecasts, an inventory of our facilities, so a list of all the schools and capacities in our properties, a forecast of future needs for new schools and properties. It includes a 6-year financing plan for capital facilities that are necessary to serve the projected growth. So that goes out 6 years. That's a fairly detailed plan. It also requires that we identify school facilities needs out to 2035. And we do that by correlating student projected enrollment with population forecasts. So we have a 6-year financing plan, and then what amounts to from 18 to 2035, so about a 17-year plan for other facilities that isn't a financing plan. And then also we update every year our student generation rate calculations, so those are in the plan, as well as you mentioned, Director Lassane, school impact fee calculations, those are in there as well. So the variables, what I'm doing today is really going through this in a little bit of detail around the methodologies. The reason is I want you to understand we are proposing fees, impact fees to the county and then to the city of Everett that are significantly higher than our current fee amount. So I'll give you some background around that and help you understand why. So the variables that go into the formula to calculate school impact fees are contained in the Growth Management Act, and then Snohomish County adopts the methodology that the state has put together in the GMA. So what you use in that formula are enrollment and capacity projections, the number of new schools or classroom additions that you need for the new students. So you have to be growing, and then you have to be beyond your permanent capacity. So with those two requirements met, then you're eligible for impact fees. The formulas also include the costs of construction and site acquisition, and we know that those are going up. We are required to update student generation rates for new residential units. And then also in the formula are credits to the fee amount for state construction assistance funds when we're eligible. Then those reduce the fee amount if we get those kind of fees, as well as there's a variable in the formula for reducing the impact fee to account for future property taxes to be paid by the housing owners. So all of this is built into this formula. And then on top of it all, once the fee is calculated, Snohomish County has adopted by ordinance a 50% reduction in the fee. And that was put in place in the early 1990s when developers and school districts were kind of going head to head about how to implement this. And there was a negotiated, basically an agreement with the county and the developers, the master builders primarily, and the school districts too, that there were enough uncertainties around the whole methodology used in this calculation that a 50% discount in the fee was an appropriate reduction to account for the uncertainties. So with that, the developers and the school districts set aside and said, well, we can accept that. So that's been in place since the early 90s. So now to give you a little bit of understanding about how important this has been to us over time. It has accounted for, over the last 10 years, about 3.56% of our expenditures in the capital fund over the last 10 years. That may not sound like much, but I know that if you're looking at your, for example, personal income, if you were to be talking about a 3.56% reduction in your personal income, it would feel like a big, important deal. It amounts to $13.44 million out of $381.5 million over the last 10 years. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of walk you through 2 years ago. These were the fees that were proposed. So it's important to look at the date. Capital Facilities Plan 2016-21. So exactly 2 years ago, these were the fees that the school districts were proposing to the county during the update process. These were not the adopted final fees. I'm just trying to paint this scenario for you. So 2 years ago, look at where we were. We were at $6,950. Lake Stevens was at $8,610. North Shore was at $10,563. That's what went in about April to the county. And I'm going to the next slide is going to tell some of the story here, but right now we're the third highest. And then these were the fees that were actually approved by the county. So these are the current fees that are in place. Look at North Shore's. Instead of 10,000 plus, they're at 7,000. Lake Stevens, instead of being what it was, 8,610, they're now at 6,624. We're still at 6,950. What happened after the school district submitted? Snohomish County, at the council, Snohomish County Council, at the urging of the development community, imposed a $7,000 cap on the fees that school districts were allowed to collect. So that effectively reduced North Shore's fee from $10,563 to a maximum of $7,000. So North Shore has been limited to that fee amount for the last year and a half or so. And they will be limited, pardon
Can
me?
you address why some districts are at zero?
Oh, yes, sure. Some of the school districts, in order to be eligible to collect impact fees, you have to be growing over that 6-year time frame. And you also have to have unhoused students. So you have to be growing. They assume that any growth that you've had in the past doesn't count for future impact fees. So you may have had a lot of growth and then you kind of slow down for a little bit. If you slow down, you're not eligible for fees at that point. So that's really why. So anyway, what happened? Oops. Sorry, I skipped ahead here. So the reason that Lake Stevens was reduced from 8,000 and some down to 6,624 is after they submitted the fees and they saw what everyone else's looked like, the school board elected to take a voluntary reduction of about 25% in their fee amount that, by the way, dropped it down to just below ours. So that's what happened. And those are the current fees in place now. North Shore at 7,000, we're at second, number 2 at 6,950, and Lake Stevens at 6,624. All the fees I'm talking about are single family so far. On the right-hand side, you can see the fees for a multifamily with 2 or more bedrooms. So now I'm going to go to the answer that Director Lesane was commenting about. These are the impact fees that we are proposing right now that would go into effect January 1 if they make it through the process. These are already discounted 50%. So you can see that the actual fee for single family would have been $29,000 and some. So we've reduced it by 50% consistent with the ordinance and are proposing fees for every single family home, $14,685, multi-family homes with 2 or more bedrooms, $9,339. Right now that multifamily rate for 2 or more bedrooms is around $3,000 or so. So these are significant increases, doubling of the single family fee, tripling of the multifamily fee. And the reason that multifamily fees for 0 to 1 bedroom units are at $0 is because statistically they do not generate any students in those units. All right, so this is what the other school districts look like right now based on their proposed fees. North Shore now is still number 1, up at 16,038. We're second, 14,685, and then it drops way down to Arlington, 4,756.
And can you address the difference in North Shore's single family versus multifamily? Is it the type of units being built in their district, or why are they so dramatically different, whereas we're more similar?
Right, so I haven't looked in detail at their calculations, but I can tell you, remember the variables had to do with the cost of construction, the cost of sites, also the student generation rates, so how many students are generated from each type of unit. Those are the primary variables. One thing that we have seen in our district, and it was very evident at that, I think it's called Gateway Place, just across 132nd from Lowe's down there, a multifamily development that we predicted was going to generate about 19 or 20 students, I think it was, generated around 80 or 90 students. And it was in the few months just before school opened in the summer. So we had to scramble to accommodate those students. So what I'm talking about is our student generation rate for multifamily units with 2 or more bedrooms has gone up quite a bit. So that's why the large increase in costs in the impact fees for multifamily.
That one development has units that have 4 bedrooms.
That's right, 4 and 5 bedroom units, which basically become a kind of an alternative to a single family home with that many bedrooms too, yeah. All right, Lake Stevens is not shown with any fee yet because at this point the county has not yet received their capital facilities plan, so we're not sure what numbers they're going to come forward with. All right. So I wanted to compare the impact fee amounts with the cost of a new school just to kind of help you understand that. So I've highlighted in yellow the costs per student for, well, actually, let's go to the first one, impact fees. The current impact fees of $6,950 per single family home, statistically that home would generate 0.447 students, you know, most of those at the elementary, but some at middle and high. And that we would receive then on a per student basis about the equivalent of $15,548 per student from those single family homes. So if you look at the a new school project cost, so to build it and equipment and equip the school without considering the land costs is between $107,000 per student and $114,000 per student. And interestingly enough, on a per square foot basis, the elementary schools are more expensive. Actually, on a per student basis, I mean. So on the average, an elementary or a high school will cost around $110,000 per student to build, and we will receive for every single family home about, on a per student basis, about $15,500. So that gives you kind of a relative idea of that the costs paid through impact fees to our school district do not mitigate the full effect of those housing units on our district. By doubling the fee, it will bring that, in fact, I think I do. Yeah, here's the next slide shows what the new fees will be generating, so the amounts generated in the fees per student just about double for both multifamily and single family homes, up to about $31,000 plus per student. So that's the kind of the big picture. There are some other elements to the capital facilities plan. Quickly, projects that are adding capacity in new elementary school, new high school, portable classrooms, and site for elementary 19. And so look at the time frame. This is out for the next 6 years, out through 2023. The projects that do not add capacity are really those that we have already funded through the bond, 2016 bond and levy, and a few other projects. This next slide here shows that when you go beyond 2023 out to 2035, so about 17 years out, we're looking at 3 or 4 elementary schools more than what we just showed you, plus some additions, 1 new middle school, and then no additional high school space, assuming that we're able to build a high school by 2023. So the short story is between now and 2023, consistent growth, 1 high school, 1 middle school, and 4 or 5 elementary schools. So it will be a continuing phenomena for us, this responding to growth. All right, and one of the other things contained in the capital facilities plan are school design capacities. The sizes of the schools, when we build them new, we tend to add additions over time. These figures here don't affect the fee at all, the fee calculations. They just affect kind of our plan on how big we're planning to build some schools. By the way, Peter Scott has assembled a team, an ad hoc committee. It's basically a subcommittee in part of the Capital Facilities Advisory Council, and we're going to be looking at these sizes to see if they're the appropriate sizes. So we may well be proposing some modification to this in the August final approval when we come to you. And then here's the update process. I mentioned that by the end of 2018, the Snohomish County Council will adopt. We also will be asking City of Everett Council to adopt as well. And then between now and then, the county will be going through their technical review. They'll ask us for final changes to the county in June. We do a SEPA review of the plan in July, and then we have you adopt in August, and then it goes to public hearings in front of Snohomish County Planning Commission, and then they put a recommendation together for the Snohomish County Council, who then conduct their own hearings and go through the approvals. There has already been some information from county planning staff that the master builders are proposing changes to the ordinance that would be in response to some of this right now. We'll keep you informed and give you an update on that in August, I'm sure. In that, a summary is the proposed single-family home impact fees up over $14,000 for single-family, multifamily, 2+ bedroom units, up over $9,000, and looking forward to approvals by yourselves and the Snohomish County and the City of Everett. Oh, and ready for comments and questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Directors, comments and questions regarding capital facilities plan?
Director Mason, I have a question. Going back over on your slide, I can't see it in the presentation that I have on my computer, but it had the breakdown of $14,000 per student for an elementary school and for high school.
Yes.
This one.
Yep.
That one, page 11. That one's good. That one brings it home and kind of clarifies it with me when I can discuss this with our constituents when they ask, how come you don't get, impact fees that pay for a new school? And this is one of those things that I can really use. So I don't have that, and I would like to have that slide. The other question is, will this slide be presented to both the county and the city when we give them our proposed figures so that they don't come back and say, well, we're going to cut that because we think that's just too high? And will they get other information regarding what the state provides as, state, construction assistance, not, information regarding to a new bond to build a school? Will they also get information as far as how difficult it has been to approve a bond, with getting 60% supermajority, so they can understand the reasons why we're looking at $14,685 and $9,339 before just saying it's just too high because we've got a lobbying group over here that says, that's just too much.
Right. We certainly will be doing presentation to the Snohomish County Planning Commission as well as the County Council. And we have representatives working with us. Reed Shockey is working with us. And then also a number of school districts in the county have retained an attorney to help us with this as well. So we will be doing presentations and sharing our story with the County Council and Planning Commission along the way. Yes.
Fantastic. I would like to get a copy of this one because I don't think it's in our
It is.
presentation.
It's in
It
board
is?
docs. Yeah.
Oh, board docs, okay.
Yeah, which is, I think, not function, or it's back.
Because this one, I'm looking at it now here, and it says page 11. It's a different page 11. In the power.
Facilities plan.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Yeah.
This.
There are two attachments. The
Yeah, the
present.
draft, I looked at the PowerPoint presentation, and that one was,
It's
page
different?
11 is different than this page 11. And
I see. Yeah.
then the draft
Was it
capital
updated?
facilities
No.
plan.
Was the presentation updated at some point? No.
We will provide you with a copy of that
Okay.
page.
Thank
though.
you.
How's that?
Got it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Other directors, do you have questions, comments?
I just want to add a comment that because of the feedback, like Director Lassane said, our constituents, the parents, the community just does not understand, especially when they move from other states, that construction doesn't build schools. And because they know they've paid impact fees, or
Wait,
they believe impact fees, or they
You say
believe
construction doesn't build schools. Can you clarify?
that other states, what I've been told from parents at these meetings, if a neighborhood goes in, it's been planned with a school going in. So it's like a proactive school development with new construction in other states. And so that they know they pay impact fees, or they know they pay property taxes that will pay for new construction. That the fact that when we hear comments about, don't you get impact fees, that we can say, now, we used to get a little bit, we get a little bit more, but it's always been our argument, they don't pay for it. It's really nice to see this evidence about how much those impact fees really don't pay for it, so that how dependent we really are on bonds
Yes.
for our construction. So thank you for that. And
Yeah.
Director Lissain, I appreciate the fact that you brought that up. So thank you.
I have a couple of questions, if I may. I'm a little bit confused. Who officially approves the impact fee in the end? Is it the county?
You approve it.
We approve.
You approve the capital facilities plan. Including the fee calculation. The county adopts your capital facilities plan as part of their comprehensive plan, which then allows us to be able to receive the fees that they collect on our behalf.
And if we adopted it as it stands and they choose to make modifications, do we have to re-adopt it, or do they make modifications and then approve it as modified?
They approve it as modified. An example.
Based on their modifications, without coming back to us essentially for approval?
Correct.
Yeah.
An
So
example
in the end, the county sort of has the final say on the dollar amount?
They have the final say on how much they will collect from developers.
Okay.
They're the governmental entity that issues the permits, and so they can determine what fees they will charge to issue the permits.
And do they develop the formulas and we plug our numbers into their formulas to get to that dollar amount?
Essentially, but they're really not the original authors of the formula. It's the state legislature.
So we have a statewide formula
We do. And
that
it's
the
in
county then uses.
It's in the Growth Management Act.
Okay,
So
I missed that
GMA
part. Yeah, I saw that. Okay.
GMA, the state legislature has adopted the methodology with the formulas in the GMA. And then the county has taken that and basically, without changing it, has adopted it in county ordinance, except that then at the end of the fee calculation, they have imposed a 50% reduction in the fee.
And that's the county that did that.
That's the county that did that.
And then are the generation rates, are the formula for that statewide as well?
No, those are actually required to be generated locally.
So each district has potentially different generation rates for what their developments produce?
Yes. They should, and they do.
Okay.
Yeah.
As part of each district's plan?
Yeah, we hire a consultant that studies that. We actually give them access to our student data.
And it's
they
kind of
match it
based
up
on
with-
historical?
Based on, I think they go back 6 years, and they actually take the electronic records of new housing developments indicating what type of units and when they were built, and then the addresses, and they match that up with our student records, and so they come up with a report that says how many students at each grade level are generated by specific housing types.
Okay.
And this is all summarized in that capital facilities plan that is attached to the board docs. So you're seeing a draft of the plan. In board docs, you're seeing the final report in there for student generation rates.
Okay.
We didn't show them on here because but we will in August. We'll show you about that, tell you about that.
Director Andrews, any questions?
No questions, just a comment that the capital facilities plan was obviously a lot of work to put together, but it's also very interesting reading. Yeah, so I would urge anyone who wants to look at our website and look at it. It's very interesting. Yeah. Thank you.
I describe it when I do the real presentation in August as kind of a collection of a lot of planning documents that we use, and it's all in one location.
Mhm.
And it's I find it interesting too.
Yes.
Okay. I think no further questions?
All right.
Thank you very much for the information in the presentation.
Thanks.
We'll now move to 11.02, Legislative Funding Outlook, and Mr. Moore is here to talk about what he knows, the latest.
Director Andrews, I hope you haven't lost your passion for the CAFR, though.
I have not. No.
Okay, good.
I think it still takes #1 priority. Always a pleasure.
Oops, pushed the wrong button. So tonight in brevity, not a lot has changed since our last conversation, but there is some new information in here. I think it's important for our public to constantly be reminded of the circumstance that we, in particular, our district is in. We've got the same performance outlooks, and we do know that what the state did with their final actions this year with the legislature is move up when they're providing us funding for all types of employee staffing, but they also capped us at 3.1%. So they're providing us the resources, but saying you can't spend it until next year. So that complication kind of feathers into our conversations with our labor partners. They did a little tweaking to special education. They formed a committee to define what a workday is. So that really has to do with our educators and deciding what they're paying for. We hope it has an outcome that helps better define basic education. They tweaked our health care, and then they, during an election year, reduced the state property tax that they had imposed for 1 year by 30 cents. So this is an updated slide that shows, in the past we've showed our shortfall. Looking back, you can see with the influx of state funding next year, we will code all of our staff. So there are some information in the public that the state has provided us funding for staff, but somehow we're not providing it to the employees. We are recalibrating 100% of that funding that is intended for salaries to all of our groups, which is certificated teachers, classified administrators, and classified staff. But you can see in doing so that lowers our commitment to special ed from the local levy, but it grows over time. And in fact, when they cut our levy, I'll show you later, down significantly in the future, it'll be 25% of our levy, which is in this current year, we budgeted to be 17% of our levy. So they did do a little tweaking to the safety net, but you can see we still have that gap between what the state and federal funding is and when safety net begins. And we all know that philosophically, or when we're required by state and federal law to provide a level of service, it has to be basic ed, and they haven't acknowledged that. We've seen this slide. It's just to continue to remind that the inequities of the levy formula. But what we've done is translate that to lower. So in this example, Bellevue has the same number of students and gets 20 million more a year. That's really an inequity that has to be addressed. But across just our own regional area, you'll find that when they have the lesser of, either you get $2,500 a student or you get $1.50 per 1,000 AV. The high AV districts can reach that 2,500. So Bellevue is at 2,500, probably could collect 3,500, but they're capped at that point. And you can see that Everett is down around 1,557. The districts that fall below 1,500, they receive local effort assistance, so they're brought up to 1,500. So while we, with our high labor rates, and our cost of living in this area, we have rural districts that don't want to help us out of the circumstance we're in with a structural deficit unless they too can collect 2,500. So they're asking the state to fully fund that, and that's sort of the impasse. We need a fix, and they want to be a part of that. So you can see even now, if we're sitting down at tables with different labor groups, different districts have different levels of resource to solve the problem in the long term, and we're hoping to mitigate that. So here's some statistics. In the 2018 state cap, which is under the 28%, for Everett is $62.23 million. We are actually collecting with the local effort assistance that we've had in the past and what our voters approved, $55.5 million. So we're below that amount. So the actual estimate on the most current pivot table multi-year is that in 2019 our levy will be capped, and this is calendar year, remember this is calendar year, not school year, at 31 million. So that means that we're 31 million below what our cap was this year, and we're also actually getting 24.41 million less from a levy and LEA in 2019. I don't want to go into how you're getting half the levy of one year and half the levy of another year, but these are just some of the hard facts. And so you can see 2019 is beyond, there's no going back to that actual reality. We're hoping to correct 2020 unless some reason the legislature called back, which other than some of the media attention, it certainly wouldn't be this issue. We really want to continue to communicate to our community that the reason we think they made the most egregious mistake in doing their new formula is they counted every dollar they gave us, and they're forgetting that a lot of that funding goes to new programs. And we've seen this slide before, so I won't dwell on that. So we remember that this is where we started, and this is where the court said you're relying too much on local levies. This is where we move towards, and again, emphasizing here, that 100% of the new state funding will be committed to salaries. What you'll find is that the levy funds that are left over from a larger 2018 funding create a surplus of resources that's provided by our local community. And the perception is that somehow we're not allocating the state funding. That's not true. The question is, what do we do with those resources? So as we get to this point down the future, you're going to see we're going to become dependent upon our local levy again, and it will be much smaller than it is today. And it's a structural deficit that, as we've seen this slide before down at the bottom, it's the phase out of state funding for salaries. So here we have, in essence, $17 million of levy resources next year, and determining what we can do that's sustainable continues to be our challenge. So if we were to add in this next layer saying, the curriculum plan that's been presented to you has some deeper investments in the future, and the opening of elementary 18, you can see that our situation gets darker. So we're in the process of putting together a 4-year budget, and we'll be providing some information to you at the first reading of the budget adoption. So we're kind of in this quandary. We know we would have to make significant reductions in our staffing level, so we'll either bring you a balanced budget that considers us making significant cuts, or we'll show the reality of what our future is and provide that to the state as well. This is what our situation looks like if we get full access to what our voters approve. So we stay certainly in a positive situation, but this assumes that we're providing the current labor increases for all of our groups moving forward. If that dynamic change, when you get down to the end of the pipe there in 2023 and 24, you don't have a lot of room left. So whatever we choose to do in the early years, short of having a legislative action, even the legislative action here doesn't give us a lot of wiggle room, but we do have resources in the near term. It's an interesting dynamic. So in summary, the state didn't fund McCleary. Much of the funding that they counted towards our cutting our levy is prescriptive, and all our compensation is going directly to our employees, and we are going to be reliant on the levy, and we need to have a levy fix at a minimum, and we need to convince the state that they need to rise all water so we're not in a structural deficit. That is the funding update.
Thank you. Directors, questions regarding the update?
Did I make you sad? Okay.
The Cottonwood, sorry. But there is
It's such
some.
a dry presentation.
Yeah, no, there is some sadness and some frustration, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Because people are working hard. I've heard too, sorry to start out, but I know people are working hard on the special ed thing because the state is not fully funding basic education for each student. And I
Yes.
appreciate all the people that are out there fighting for that.
Yes.
Because it will help all of our students. That's all I have to say.
Can you help remind me on the slide that had the curriculum? I don't remember that being a part of sort of the expenses and why that was added. And I don't recall the implementation.
It's not
many
adopted.
years, but the proposed implementation of.
It was in the curriculum update that Dr. Scott provided. We just put in a couple of examples. If we continue this with that path, there are other things as well that put pressure on us. And for example, this doesn't have a new high school, which is $4.9 million a year. So this isn't inclusive. This was a couple of examples that were used to demonstrate, how fragile those out years are, even with the levy passing.
Okay.
So there's no board action that created that.
Yeah, no, I was more about the curriculum adoption cycle and what was out that many years, just because I couldn't remember.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we are on to section 12.0 unfinished business, and there is no unfinished business tonight, which takes us to section 13.0 new business. We have several items of new business, beginning with 13.01, the approval of student representative to the school board. Mr. Polk is going to introduce our new student representative, which is always a very exciting time for us.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Cascade High School student Hannah Tran for your consideration as a student representative to the school board beginning September 11, 2018, and her term will end in June 2020. Hannah is currently a sophomore at Cascade High School, where she's involved in National Honor Society, cross country, and track. Additionally, Hannah has served as a counselor at Camp Prov, which is a camp for children with mental and physical disabilities and their siblings. Also, Hannah takes pride in her commitment to attend Japanese school for 7 hours every Saturday during the entire school year for the past 11 years, where she learns Japanese language, history, and culture. Hannah is very interested in creating more welcoming environments in our schools so that all students will feel comfortable in participating in school activities and asking for the help they need to succeed in the classroom. Hannah is eager to hear from her fellow students and bring their thoughts and ideas to the school board. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Hannah Tran. Hannah.
Good evening. Thank you all for having me today. I am humbled to introduce myself as the new student representative from Cascade High School for the 2018 to 2020 school years. I am excited to serve my community by voicing student opinions from Cascade High School and hopefully from other Everett schools, and ultimately creating stronger bonds between the students from the Everett School District and the community that supports student growth and achievement. I would like to thank my family for always encouraging me to speak up for what I believe in and teaching me how important it is to listen to others. I would also like to thank my teachers and peers who motivate me to do my best as a person and student, and those who have granted me with this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So in years past, the board has made a motion to approve, and then we carry on and get Hannah underway.
And with that, I would like to call for a motion to approve. Yeah, oh, question?
No.
Comment?
Hi.
Oh, okay.
I had the honor of being a board representative in the process of Hannah's selection. And with that, I would like to make a motion that the board of directors approve this select committee nominee, Hannah Tran at Cascade High School, for the appointment as student representative to the Everett Public Schools Board of Directors, beginning with the September 4th regular board meeting, and to serve in accordance with the policies until June of 2020.
And
There is a second.
I will second that because Hannah and I cannot remember how long our daughters have been friends. Sometime kindergarten, first or second grade. So she's an outstanding young lady. So thank you.
Excellent. And with that, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, no. The motion carries. Welcome, Hannah. We look forward. Now, on to homework. Okay. With that, we are on to 13.02, high school science and engineering instructional materials adoption.
That's a hard act to follow.
Welcome.
Thank you. Congratulations. Well,
Good evening. Today, I will provide an overview of the Grade 9 Science and Engineering Instructional Materials Review process and explain the characteristics of the recommended instructional materials. The instructional materials adoption process initiated with a needs assessment, which identified new science and engineering standards, new state science assessment, and the need to refresh instructional materials. As you are aware, the state adopted the Next Generation Science Standards, the NGSS, in 2013. The NGSS are comprised of 3 dimensions: disciplinary core ideas, science and engineering practices, and cross-cutting concepts. The NGSS, similar to the Common Core, not only include science and engineering content, but also the practices of both scientists and engineers. In addition, there are themes that cross-cut all of the practices and core ideas. The NGSS are grade-banded standards. That is, that they are articulated as 9th through 12th grade standards. OSPI provides districts the opportunity to determine how the standards will be addressed in their system. Because of this, I have planned for course transitions to NGSS in 3 phases. The first phase is course specifications and sequencing. I convened an NGSS design team to create high school course maps specific to Everett Public Schools. The outcome is 3 new core science and engineering courses aligned to the standards. The course titles on this slide represent the draft titles of these 3 courses. The process was needed to inform Phase 2, review and adoption of instructional materials. The Grade 9 adoption process supports the implementation of the first of 3 new NGSS-aligned courses, which is a course with the working title of Environmental Biology. This course is intended to integrate life science, earth and space science, and engineering standards. The third phase will be course design, which will marry the course specifications with the instructional materials. We will run a parallel process in the future when we adopt grade 10 and 11 science instructional materials. The plan is timely in that it ensures preparation and exposure of NGSS content for the cohort of students that may be required to pass the Washington Comprehensive Assessment of Science, or WCAS, for graduation. Finally, it is time for new high school science instructional materials. The current grade 9 science instructional materials for coordinated science were adopted in the spring of 2005. This is also true for the biology instructional materials, which have been a grade 9 course option as well. In addition to conducting a needs assessment, the adoption process was initiated by solicitation of materials to support a biology class with an environmental science emphasis and convening a diverse committee comprised of science teachers and administrators, as well as special education, English learner, and technology support staff. We began this journey with professional development to calibrate the committee's understanding of equity and access connected to NGSS, best practices that support how students and people learn science and engineering, the 3 dimensions of the standards, and how they integrate to support learning experiences that allow students to function as scientists and engineers, career-connected learning, and what that means specific to our region, and 21st century skills. The committee established review criteria, including alignment to the NGSS, alignment to the description of the grade 9 environmental biology course, and inclusion of career-connected learning. The committee also utilized criteria aligned to district priorities: 21st century skill development, standards-aligned formative and summative assessments, support for differentiation, and digital and online resources. An in-depth screening and evaluation was completed per 2311 procedure. The committee was trained on the process and calibrated screening tools. We hosted 1 open house event at the CRC for administrators, staff, families, and community members to attend. Publisher presentations served the purpose of preparing teachers to field test and provided an opportunity for the committee to receive additional information about the instructional materials. The instructional material finalists were field tested. Teachers implemented period-long lessons utilizing the instructional materials. Each teacher was assigned 2 sets of instructional materials to field test with their students and completed detailed reflection forms for each. Students completed reflection forms as well. They expressed excitement and gratitude for being included in the process. The final step in the adoption process was to review all the data that was collected. We had a data day, which we reviewed the data in the process I've described so far. We made the data visual to help the committee analyze their work. The data analysis illuminated the results from student, teacher, and community input, as well as all of the data that we collected as we followed 2311P. As a result of this comprehensive review of data, the committee would like to recommend the instructional materials entitled STEM Scopes. STEM Scopes by Accelerate Learning is a fully digital curriculum including both student and teacher resources. The materials contain scopes, or units, that are built around the 5E plus IA instructional model. The 5 E's are engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. IA is for intervention and acceleration. The activities support students learning by doing and experiencing by figuring out rather than passively receiving. The teachers are excited about these new instructional materials. This slide shares some of their comments. I am excited about using STEM Scopes. It offers the most current information and data about issues affecting our students' lives. STEM Scopes will help to even the playing field for Everett students by providing the skills needed for STEM careers and degrees. The online platform allows us the versatility to engage students in dynamic learning experiences. STEM Scopes was recommended because it provides tight alignment to the NGSS, as well as the Grade 9 Science course map developed by our district's NGSS design team. It's comprised of a digital platform providing activities and instructional resources for students and teachers and aligns to our one-to-one learning environment. The online nature of STEM Scopes allows for annual updates by the publisher to assure relevancy and accuracy of science content and alignment to standards and assessments. Many of the STEM Scope updates are a direct result of feedback from classroom teachers. It provides multiple layers of support for special populations during whole group instruction, including language acquisition strategies, accessibility settings, and picture vocabulary, with differentiated options for students with IEPs, for EL students, and students that read text below grade level. It provides robust support for teachers, including background information, standards alignment, answer keys, material lists, setup videos incorporated into each element of the platform, PowerPoints, preconception information, facilitation points, differentiation strategies, and a lot of planning tools. And it allows for flexibility in the use of the digital platform and instructional resources to fit the needs of our district and our specific course. Lastly, it provides career connection videos with hands-on lessons and guiding questions. The videos and the activities are meant to introduce students to STEM careers and the 21st century skills needed to be successful in those fields. To access the curriculum, teachers will log into the STEM Scopes Learning website. Scopes, or units, are displayed as a tile with a picture and a title. Clicking on a scope illuminates the 5E plus IA organization of each unit. As teachers click into each tab, they discover several recommended activities designed to guide students' investigation of phenomenon and solve problems. These tasks include hands-on activities, active and applied lab experiences, the manipulation and analysis of data from real-world phenomena collected around the world, and reading activities to help students generate explanations for the problem that drove the learning within the scope or the unit. Teachers assign tasks or activities that students will see when they log into the curriculum each day. Like previously stated, the online nature of STEM Scopes allows for continual updates, which will assure relevancy and accuracy of science content and the instructional strategies and assessments aligned to the next generation science standards. Teachers have the ability to provide feedback to the publishers regarding the digital platform and the lessons, which helps determine the annual updates. Each high school will be one-to-one next year. These fully digital instructional materials support that learning environment in this district initiative. As I have shared earlier in the presentation, I have scaffolded the transition to high school NGSS courses into 3 phases: course mapping, instructional materials adoption, and then this spring we will address the 3rd phase, course design. A team of teachers representing each high school will convene and utilize the STEM Scope materials and our district's NGSS course map to design and provide a formal name to the 9th grade science and engineering course. Teachers The team of teachers will be developed as leaders to support implementation of this new NGSS-aligned course in each of their schools. Summer professional development will be provided for initial use training. Oops. And school year professional development will be timely and include both in-person and online trainings to support the use of the digital platform, storyline coherence, and unit instructional mapping, assessments, differentiation, career-connected learning, as well as any other supports needed by the teachers. In summary, I have shared the Grade 9 Science and Engineering instructional review process, explained the characteristics of the recommended instructional materials, and by doing so, requested adoption of the recommended instructional materials. Thank you. Be happy to address any comments.
Thank you very
or
much. That
questions.
was a very thorough overview. Appreciate all the detail. Directors, do you have questions for Ms. Cartwright?
I have one question, because I believe your son and my daughter both took this class in 8th grade. What's happening with the 8th graders that are taking 9th grade science? Because I don't know if all of our middle schools will have one-to-one next year.
Your student took coordinated science this year?
No, 2 years ago. So the coordinated science, isn't that 9th grade science?
That's our current version of 9th grade science.
Okay.
This is a new
So this is new, but for the 8th graders that are middle school that are taking 9th grade science, are the middle schools all going to be at one-to-one next year?
I do not believe all the middle schools are at one-to-one next year.
So how will we be supporting our 8th graders that are taking this program?
So if you recall when we presented on June, was it 23rd? Or January 23rd, excuse me, on the NGSS readiness report, we are retaining middle school coordinated science for the time being. The middle school course maps are under construction.
I did not recall that, thank you.
Yep.
When will that change?
As soon as we can. Well, the middle school course maps are currently under construction and will be completed within the next year. And as a result of that, will help us identify which of the high school courses that have been planned would make the most sense to seed as that 8th grade high school credit bearing option for students.
So to follow up, what would the progression be for an 8th grader who took coordinated science next year? What would they take in 9th grade?
Either this environmental biology course or AP environmental science will be their options, their recommended options.
Okay.
And not just biology as a 9th grader? Or is this an addition, is this a new 9th grade science class? Because my daughter went coordinated science to biology.
Right. This will be the new 9th grade science, environmental biology to then the next NGSS aligned course that we implement for.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was paying attention.
No, that's great.
I didn't know we were redesigning, we were redesigning our entire science curriculum. So thank you.
Aligned to the standards.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this would be the first class that has digital curriculum and no textbook. Is that correct?
I think you just approved a very major adoption for middle school math.
But that still has a text.
Well, it has some paper.
It has paper.
It has a workbook, not a
Well, it has a
textbook.
workbook, but this has no paper.
It can have paper if you choose to print. But you're right, it does not have.
It does not have a workbook or a textbook. Right. This is a complete, all total digital. I mean, the math adoption, it was digital, but it had a workbook. Right. Correct?
Yes.
Consume something that we have to, in addition, purchase.
Right.
Right. This is the first time where it's all going, because we are going to go one-to-one next year. And so the 9th graders next year would be all digital, correct? Yeah.
In their science course, yes.
But it still will be different because they're coming out of middle school where they've used all texts. So yeah, it will be different.
It will be different.
Yes,
for those kids. They will go into a classroom and not receive a book.
Correct.
Any additional questions?
Druvik has one.
Yeah, so I just have a clarification. I want to make sure I heard this right. So with the 8th grader, that Director Mason just said that takes coordinated science, and then they have the option to take environmental biology or AP environmental science, you said?
Yes, those are their two choices.
So if they choose to do, say, AP environmental science, would they not have to do any sort of like specifically biology course at all?
That is equivalent to the environmental biology course. So those two share an
so
equivalency.
it covers okay.
Yep.
And then into AP biology.
That is an
potentially.
option, and we will be articulating the various pathways that a student could travel.
And what is the, I guess I'm a little bit confused in that you're still retaining the coordinated science, which is currently not as well aligned to the standards, and creating a new ninth grade course, which is, but it's not going to be available to kids who are students who are accelerated. Is that?
Do you want to speak to that, or do you want me to? Yeah, well, so again, the middle school course maps are under construction, and we aren't up for adoption for a while in middle school. But in addition to that, what we've done with the middle school version of coordinated science is carefully reviewed it and its alignment to the next generation science standards, which we have transitioned over time to enhance the curriculum to be more NGSS aligned. And in addition to that, identify how it supports learning either environmental biology or AP environmental science for students.
And there's a textbook for coordinated science?
Yes.
But that is not changing. So you deviate from the textbook for certain lessons that are more aligned to
Since the adoption of the standards in 2013, we've been working with that group of teachers to NGSSify their curriculum.
Okay, yeah. I like that.
Those kids are learning 8th grade science standards as well.
Right,
So-
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Any additional?
I have a question.
Yeah.
First, it's exciting to adopt another digital curriculum, because you can just see the opportunities for students to individualize their instruction. I mean, it's exciting. The last bullet point on, not sure what slide it is, but it talks about career-connected learning and introducing them to STEM careers and skills. How do they do that? Is it through videos of people in different careers, or is it just, I was just curious how that's presented in the curriculum?
Yeah, so a lot of them are set up exactly that way, where the teacher is prompted with some guiding questions to show a video of a STEM specialist in a career, speaking about the work that they do and the projects that they participate in out in the community. And then in addition to that video and the guiding questions, then there is a hands-on activity that the teacher can implement with their students to engage them in work that's similar to that career specialist, so that the students have the opportunity to feel for a moment what it might be like to work like that individual.
Yeah, how interesting.
Are we taking local businesses and local opportunities to present those career-connected type of
we will be whenever we can.
Yeah. Because it would be great, because we can use, what Boeing does, what PSE or PUD does out here. So it's something local, so our kids, if they choose to stay locally, they can see what's available in that type of career locally.
As we roll out the implementation of this course, I will be working very closely with Brian Day, our Career and Technical Education Director, so that we can do exactly those things and marry the career-connected learning work with internships, apprenticeships, and whatnot that they're working on to include in all of our new science courses as we roll them out over time. So.
Right.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Okay.
That's exciting.
I think we're done. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
We have one more curriculum adoption up next, 13.03, Spanish instructional materials. And we have Ms. Georgia Lindquist here to help us through this.
Good evening, and thank you so much for this opportunity to explain the Spanish instructional materials adoption process and the characteristics of the recommended materials, and request your approval in this first reading of the recommended instructional materials. All of our work began and ended with a focus on our district vision and mission and the important role that our world language classes have to play in accomplishing these key performance outcomes to create rigorous, relevant instruction, and also to ensure that our students at graduation have skills in languages and deep awareness and understanding of culture, so that they are prepared to thrive in a global society, both here at home in our own community and worldwide. The purpose of our adoption process was to focus in on our Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Spanish 3, and Spanish for Heritage Speakers courses, and then recommend materials designed to align with our standards and best practices and develop an implementation plan. And we had a phenomenal committee gathered together representing all of our high schools, representing world language department chairs, representing native Spanish speakers, heritage Spanish speakers, and representing people in our greater educational community here in Everett who have made a commitment to continued professional growth. Teachers who've been going to Spain each summer for literature study and all kinds of things. This is an amazingly energetic, committed group of teachers who really dove in and committed to follow the process and really keep in mind the best interests of all of our students and staff. And in this process, following the board process and procedure, we dove in deeply and reached out to the wider educational world of educators who are experts in language learning, researchers such as the American Research Council, who have a lot of research and studies about strategies for best practice for 21st century skills and the importance of creating environments that students can really utilize and those skills for transferable learning and deeper learning, as well as groups like the American Council on Foreign Language Teaching, who have set the standard nationally for best practice in world language teaching and learning. We solicited the instructional materials for review from publishers and relied on the expertise of a University of Washington professor who specializes in the kinds of resources needed for our Spanish for Heritage Speakers course, and really dug into all of the standards, 21st century skills, and evidence-based best practice to develop key review criteria. The key review criteria have to do with ensuring that we have materials aligned to the Washington K-12 World Languages Learning Standards, which are aligned to the national standards, really well aligned to 21st century skills, really highlighting critical thinking, communication, and citizenship, among others, and then really understanding deeply the Spanish AP level courses and the themes, the rigor, and all of the things that are required in terms of elements such as language proficiency to ensure that in a well-sequenced set of courses, we have students prepared for AP Spanish language and culture and then prepared for AP Spanish literature and culture, which we've launched for the first time this year, and pretty excited about that. So really looking also in the well-articulated instructional design that it leads to high levels of language proficiency by the end of every course, and really getting our teachers together for agreement on what language proficiency means by the end of Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Spanish 3, and so forth. The importance of authentic and accurate texts, making sure that we have resources that reflect a lot of different perspectives and a broad and diverse range of countries where Spanish is spoken, from North America through Central America and the Caribbean and South America to even Equatorial Guinea in Africa. And also providing standards-aligned assessments, resources for differentiation, and interactivity in the online platform. We completed the process by doing a strong evaluation of those key criteria, as well as the other criteria essential in our adoption process, including bias and fairness, which this committee had a particular focus on, to look to see, depending on cultural contexts, really ensuring that the materials reflected the criteria we have in the bias and fairness appendix. And for example, one set of materials was immediately bounced out because it was pretty clear that they failed on that level. Then we held an open house for staff and public feedback. We did the data review of all feedback that we had, and then summarized all of it and had our wonderful conversations about which materials would be best aligned to our key criteria and provide us with the greatest opportunity for our teachers to really meet the standards and utilize best practice, and for our students to be engaged in a rigorous course of study, and then finally develop an implementation plan. The materials we are recommending for our Spanish 1, 2, and 3 courses are the Pearson Autentico resources, which have hard copy texts, as well as a really robust, phenomenal online platform. And teachers were just really amazed at the resources that we're going to have as a result of this. In addition, the resources we'll have for heritage speakers will mainly focus in on utilizing that Autentico 3 book, because that's where most of our Spanish native heritage speakers will land. But we also adopted additional resources, Il Mundo Hispano 21, and then Español Santillana Cuaderno para Hispanola Hablantes. And these additional resources are going to provide our teachers with the kinds of materials they need to focus in on our heritage speakers, who usually are really proficient in speaking and listening, but need more resources for learning to read and write in their own language. And also, these resources allow the heritage speakers, teachers, to be able to zero in on specific things that students may need in their class, such as errors related to certain grammatical points or things like that. And the thing that was pretty cool is that the native Spanish speakers in our teaching group had the Santillana materials when they were growing up in other countries. And so this is worldwide one of the most known Spanish instructional materials companies. So they were pretty excited to also get these materials to add to their materials that they already were going to get with Autentico. And these materials are pretty phenomenal. They are aligned to the standards. The units are completely designed visually and every other way with the standards, and 21st century skills and AP course expectations. They're woven all the way through. The modes of communication, interpretive, interpersonal, and presentational, are thoroughly embedded and integrated with the authentic cultural resources. So the materials are very engaging and provide real-world experiences for our students. Then the resources include works of art, photographs, videos, texts, and access to amazing resources such as Univision, which is a Hispanic American television station for Americans who are Spanish speaking and have Hispanic culture. And then EFA, which is the 4th largest news agency in the world, and it is the key news agency for Spanish speaking people across the world. So some of these things come along and just show the commitment that this company had to ensuring that these kinds of resources were available within the platform, but also integrated effectively with the course as it's designed. In addition, there are standards-aligned formative assessments, integrated performance assessments, which embed all the 3 modes of communication in real-world opportunities, and then proficiency assessments, digital portfolios, AP practice tests, a placement test for heritage speakers, and then a variety of resources for differentiating the curriculum, and also a variety of digital resources and powerful things such as being able to download the platform, download the resources. Students can work with them online, and once they're reconnected to the internet, it all syncs up and their assignments are turned in. So it's a really, really powerful online platform, and some of the teachers said that was the main thing they went in there to see and find, and were pretty thrilled with what they found. Our implementation support will be this summer: initial use, professional learning, instructional mapping, and course development for all 4 of the courses. And it will also be focused on really helping to build more rigorous courses that are going to push our students to go farther at each course level than we've done in the past, and also agreement around the language proficiency levels at the end of each course. And then throughout next year, we will be digging deep into best practice and the standards and 21st century skills, along with efficient and effective use of the instructional resources. So we know there are always going to be some problem solving that goes on when we implement new platforms and help people learn how to find and effectively utilize the materials. Continued development of instructional maps, and then a focus on our professional growth and evaluation system, because we're going to link that intentionally with the teacher effectiveness for language learning framework, which spells out best practice in world language classrooms and links them directly to the Danielson framework and those components to really strengthen our teachers' practice and be able to make them even more expert and reflective educators. So I really appreciate the opportunity tonight to have an opportunity to explain our instructional materials process and characteristics of the recommended materials, and to request approval of these recommended instructional materials in this first reading. Thank you so much, and I'd like to, I await your questions.
Open it up for questions.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for a very thorough presentation. Directors, student representative, any comments or questions regarding Spanish adoption?
So I just have a quick question. So with the Spanish for heritage speakers, the different materials that were shown, will students have to check out each of those textbooks all together and have to use all of them, or is it that teachers have discretion in which ones they want to use?
You've got it. So they're going to be checking out Autentico. That will be their main digital platform and their main text. The teachers plan to use the other resources strategically, depending on the learners in the classroom. And so there are class sets of those materials for them to utilize to pull in as they see the need. And with this, the Heritage Speakers assessment that comes within the program, they'll have highlighted for them what the particular needs of those students are in that particular classroom. Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
This is very good. I really appreciate the presentation because it went really deep into it, and I am so glad we're moving in this direction. And you did an awesome job presenting it, and thank you so much. My question really, I guess you would say, is directed at Mr. Moore as far as the cost of the curriculum. Have we already earmarked the cost of the curriculum in our budget that we've outlined there for both the Spanish language, is the science, next generation science? Have we already earmarked all that?
Yes, we have.
Thank you very much. Let's go for it.
Any further questions?
Great job.
Okay, with that, we'll move it to second reading. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Now, I want to just thank Georgia and Andrea. They've done a tremendous job on these processes, and
yes,
this presentation this evening, both of them really, but this one in particular, did as fine a job as I've seen drawing together all the elements of the work we've been doing over the last several years to show you how the instructional materials are aligned to the course work, aligned to the the instructional model aligned to the support activities and the district's priorities. You've done a really fine job of this. They both have. And I just want to make sure you know that they've worked very hard to bring this to you. And they've practiced this before at least 2 groups before they get to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Well, it's not just a practice. It's that when they do this with multiple groups, our essentially levels in the organization don't have the ability to say they didn't know, right? So we go through it multiple times. It gets vetted. Everybody's got a chance to ask questions and amend if necessary. But nobody in the organization at the levels we're coordinating can say, I didn't know.
I will say, out of a lot of the presentations, the curriculum adoptions are some of the most thorough, and it's because our process is so thorough. I really appreciate, and like many things, it just keeps getting better with further iterations. Okay, up next, we have 2 policies to review tonight, and Mr. Fleckenstein will walk us through those. Policy 2000 to begin with, philosophy and goals.
Yeah. So proposed revisions to Policy 2000, Philosophy and Goals, are based on the WASDA model policy and update the policy language to mirror the current language in RCW 28A 150-210 more closely, as the definition of basic education as defined by the state has changed. In addition, a revision of the title from Philosophy and Goals to Student Learning Goals is proposed. The revisions to Policy 2000, Philosophy and Goals, have been reviewed by Legal Counsel, the Policy Review Council, and the Superintendent's Cabinet prior to tonight's meeting.
Okay. Any questions regarding Policy 2000 for Mr. Fleckenstein? Hearing none, we will move it to second reading, which brings us to Policy 6020, Systems of Funds and Accounts.
Yeah, proposed revisions to Policy 6020, Systems of Funds and Accounts, are presented this evening in order to comply with Senate Bill 5644, Cooperative Skill Centers, Facility Maintenance and Accounting. The legislation mandates that participating school districts must make annual deposits into the account of the host district of a cooperative skill center to pay for future minor repair and maintenance costs of those facilities. Added to this policy are descriptions of 2 funds maintained by the school district in compliance with the law, trust funds and skill center capital accounts. And those additions can be found towards the end of the policy on this update. The proposed revisions to Policy 6020, Systems of Funds and Accounts, have been reviewed by Legal Counsel and the Superintendent's Cabinet prior to tonight's meeting.
I have a question. What did we do in the past with skill centers? Were we required to make payments to them for operational or maintenance costs?
Oh.
Or is it just the accounting of it now that's different?
More of an accounting change.
Okay.
No, we're required now.
The requirement has changed.
And we were not previously required.
Correct. The state decided that it would start requiring skill centers to collect money from the member districts in order to offset capital improvements. Yeah, the state is, based on the folks I spoke with, legislators were not happy about the amount of requests they were getting to maintain skill centers, which fundamentally are our state operations. This is not a particularly substantive issue at the moment.
Okay.
It could be, and you don't really have a choice.
We don't have a choice.
Much as I don't like to say it, you don't have a choice. The law was passed. The skill centers are required to have a process to set aside the funds.
Right.
And the one that we're a member of most closely geographically decided to charge each district $30, I think, a student
Per student.
per year.
Do we have a voice in the allocations of those?
We do
funds?
not, in my view. I'll be talking with you about that when we get to the Skill Center agreement that's coming up in a month or so. I don't believe we do.
No, I don't. I understand the need to maintain facilities. That's very vital and very important. But to be able to have a voice in its and where your funds are being allocated is important.
Which is a different issue from this
As far
particular
as
policy change.
participating in that skill center.
And by gosh, I'm delighted to have that conversation with you when we bring you that agreement.
Okay.
But that's not what Larry's presenting. He's presenting the requirement to change, to conform to the state law.
Any further questions? Okay, we'll move that to second reading as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are on to section 14.0, upcoming agenda items. Dr. Cohen, what are our upcoming agenda items? I think there's a few there.
We do have a few. Item 14.1 is a reminder that you have a facilities and maintenance continuing improvement study session coming up. And I believe this one's next Tuesday morning. And then it is followed that evening by your third and final high school enrollment growth options listening session. That's 14.2, which is the evening of May 29th. That's at Jackson High School. Item 14.3 is what we would call part of your ceremonial category. It's a retiree recognition event that we have here at the Community Resource Center. And in the event we have 3 of you show up, we want to make sure we've published a meeting. Item 14.4 is the Superintendent's Strategic Advisory Council meeting with you on the morning of the 31st. And it is going to be a very robust meeting with Chief Executive Officers, Chief Human Resource Officers, some elected leaders, Janae Twitchell from the University of Washington, and representatives from, we believe, the workforce board locally and the governor's workforce group. So I'm very much looking forward to it, and that will essentially be the setting for you to launch our Career Connected Learning program and to receive advice from local businesses, leading businesses on how to facilitate the success of that. You have 14.5, which is your next regular meeting. You have a review of the elementary school boundary recommendation, or really it's the superintendent's recommendation as a result of the feedback that we received and our analysis of it and the recommendations from the committee. You've moved post-secondary enrollment patterns from this meeting to the June 5 meeting. You have several second readings of instructional materials that you reviewed tonight and the policies. You've got an April financial report. You've asked us to bring you a North Middle School naming process, and we've identified that as the first available meeting when you and we might be able to bring that together. And there are a number of other items, including your strategic plan and annual operating plan updates. We've got some recognitions that we're planning for that meeting, and we got a little bit of a celebration to recognize our retiring student representative. We'll do cake, you betcha.
What flavor do you like?
What's your favorite cake?
You like cake?
I like cake. I like any cake.
No?
Something in Stanford.
Chocolate, he said.
Stanford colors.
He said chocolate.
Stanford colors?
Yeah.
Stanford colors. Yeah, red and white.
Chocolate Stanford color cake.
Cardinal and white.
We'll work on that.
Your mascot's a tree, though, you know that.
Yeah, the tree.
We might have a husky chasing a cardinal. We're never sure how those cakes will turn out.
Okay, I was going to say something.
Yeah.
Color. Okay, thank you very much. We are now at section 15.0, executive or closed session, and tonight we do have an executive session to consult with legal counsel regarding the eminent domain process. This session is expected to last 15 minutes with expected action to follow at the end of the session.
We're really hopeful it'll only be 15 minutes.
Yes. And so take a 5-minute recess to,
To move ourselves?
To move
That would
ourselves?
be super. Yes, thank you.
okay? Thank you, everyone. The meeting is hereby reconvened.
Thank you very much. Now that you've concluded your executive session with council, in order to affect the public action that may follow that executive session, we need you to agree by supermajority to amend your agenda to include an additional action item under new business, and we would title it Property Acquisition Settlement.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve a new business agenda item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to add a new business agenda item. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion carries.
All right. Then let's look at our May 22nd agenda.
We refresh.
And yes, ma'am. And should see then an additional action item, 13.6. It is called Property Acquisition Settlement.
I see that.
And
Doesn't have a number, but that doesn't matter, I don't think.
well, it should. I mean, you can refresh and it should have it. I fiddled with it so the number would show up. So this recommended action is that the Board of Directors approve the settlement agreement establishing the purchase price and related expenses to be paid by the district for acquisition of 3.83 acres of property located at 4320 174th Street Southeast, Bothell, Washington. There is a situation statement. It describes the mediation session. It describes the settlement proposal. And you were able to sit in executive session and consult with counsel on that legal action before placing this on your agenda. Do you have any questions for Mr. Gunn or counsel?
No. Hearing none, we will proceed, or do I need to call for a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
The motion.
Is there a motion to accept the property agreement as stated?
By the way, I said, is there a motion to move the recommended action?
Is there a motion to move the recommended action?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to move the recommended action. All those in favor? Oh, is there any discussion regarding this item? Hearing none, we will move to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no.
No.
The motion carries. That hereby concludes the business to come before the Everett Public Schools Board of Directors on May 22nd. This meeting is adjourned.